no limit on the budget. The budget is like not an issue. People used to make the joke that it was like Unlimited Budget Works was like the name of the anime instead of Unlimited Blade Works because it was just like some of the craziest fucking effects and scenes that you've ever seen. But Mappa has been blowing it away. Like Chainsaw, they did Chainsaw Man 2 recently, which was really fucking just like they're really good at like kinetic, flowing sort of action,
Yeah.
right? It's like everything they do is like super high energy and kinetic. Like it's amazing.
No, yeah, Chainsaw Man was great at that shit. They're
Yeah.
that's the Attack on Titan crew too.
Oh, it is. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's the best part of Attack on Titan. Well, that's the best part of any anime, really. Is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
I watch it to see them eating ramen.
Some people do. I'm beginning to understand this that not everybody watches anime for the same reasons.
I always like there's something about really good action shit like that in anime that always gets me. Cause like that was my biggest complaint. I don't know if you guys have seen One Punch Man, but like
Yeah.
the first season of that, man, oh my god, some of the fucking best action scenes like ever made. Just an incredible achievement in just animation in general. And the second season, they got a different studio to do it, and it's like it shows like the fucking quality fell off a cliff. And I don't know, man, it kind of pissed me off because I'm like, look, I would wait 5 years for you guys to make a second season of this if you could keep it the quality of the first season, right? Like you don't got to pump the shit out. Like keep the same studio that did the awesome shit, pay them the money, give them the time to do it. I'll happily wait for it. But yeah, you just hate to see it when like the quality drops off like that.
Especially in the world of anime, it's like y'all got a lot of shit to do. Like everybody will be Gucci. We don't gotta be. Ain't
Yeah,
nobody gonna be missing One Punch Man, busy watching Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer and fucking Boruto. Who did Boruto? I didn't get into that shit because
I'm
I,
not
I was
sure.
I
I
was
never
like,
watched Naruto or any of that.
I watched Naruto and then Boruto came out. I was like, I can't. This is for the next generation. But I did what like I caught some of it because Rowan was watching it. And I was like, damn, like the jump in animation from just from Naruto to that one was like insane.
Yeah,
Did you change your background to Chris imploring Leon to fuck his sister?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, the video portion of this one gonna go crazy.
Do you guys actually release video of these episodes, or is you guys for like the Patreon or whatever?
You just
This
not be
one's
paying
gonna
attention or what?
I don't. Yeah, I'm really bad at paying attention to shit. All I've been doing lately is playing Baldur's Gate 3. That's been like my entire
Oh, I gotta
life
get
for
on the
like
Baldur's.
a month now.
Yeah, my coworker was talking about the Baldur's Gate 3. And yo, by the way, I added my buddy, he works across the hall from me, also
Mm.
an English teacher. I added him on PlayStation Network and I was like snooping, seeing what games he played and shit. This motherfucker has put 2,000 hours into Destiny and
What the?
1,500 hours into Destiny 2. I was like, damn, that must be a good ass. It's like a space game, yeah?
Uh, it's not a good game. It's an addictive game because it's got the whole like sort of Diablo loot like cycle or whatever, where it,
Right, right.
you get better and better loot. I mean, like Destiny 2, I like the art design a lot. It's a cool
Mhm.
looking game, and the gameplay's like fun for a while, but I got really bored. Like I played it for a couple months, and I just got so fucking bored with it. I got to the point where like I don't know. I used to play Final Fantasy 14 back in the day, so I played a few like a little bit of like MMO stuff. And one of the things I liked about Final Fantasy 14 is even for like the big raids and stuff, there was like matchmaking, right? Like you could choose to queue up for a certain role to go into a raid and like do this big thing with a bunch of other people. In Destiny, there are like these raids, but you have to like find a crew of people. There's no real like matchmaking. And all the raids are like they try to do these MMO style mechanics inside of a first person shooter and it doesn't fucking work. Like I remember every single raid there was like all of these like weird fucking puzzles And the guys I was with, they would all like argue with each other, and everybody get pissed off and eventually quit, and we'd never finish anything. I was like, I got better shit to do than play this.
That's awesome. That's
I
awesome.
mean,
But yeah,
it's I mean, it looks cool. Like it actually like there's this. I'll send you a video of this one thing. It's probably the only Destiny 2 thing you need to see. Um, it's something that's not even available in the game anymore, I think, which was this like it's like a little sub side quest thing called Whisper of the Worm, where you can go get this like really cool sniper rifle, and it's got some of the coolest like Nihei-esque like blame architecture I've ever seen in a game, like and super cool like soundtrack and stuff. But it always irritated me because it's a timed thing. You have to wait for the portal to appear. It appears randomly like throughout the day, so you just gotta fucking sit there with your like thumb up your ass waiting for this thing to appear. And then once you're in, like you only get 3 minutes to like get to the end. It's like a speed run challenge thing. But the whole time I'm like, man, I just want to like hang out in here. Like this is like the coolest area in the game. Like this is like super neat design. Like somebody obviously spent a lot of time and energy like making this, and I hate that like I have to just like speed run through it.
it's how I feel about the Johnny Silverhand sequence in Cyberpunk when you
Mhm.
flash back and he's
Mhm.
in Arasaka Tower,
Mhm.
because you have his like you can just headshot everybody really easily. I don't know if they like tweak the mechanics to make like people who suck better or whatever, but um it's playing the Rebel Path, which is like the main Cyberpunk song, and it's this really awesome driving techno beat. And his reloading animation, like whenever you reload, he like drops the shells and like spins it
Oh,
to
wow.
reload it. And so you have this thumping, I'm talking like Blood Raid from Blade level awesome techno track while you're like headshotting motherfuckers and then reloading by spinning your pistol. And my kid loves it. I have a save file right before that, so I can just play that scene and he can go like, yeah, while I'm headshotting people. But you're like, that could have gone on it. It's about a 5 minute sequence, but it could have been an hour and I would have had fun,
Yeah.
even though you're spongy and you're meant to get through it. It's a story cutscene, basically. But that was like one of the best parts of the game.
I hate when shit like that obviously had a lot of time and thought put into it ends up just being like this short little thing. Like there's a similar deal in Baldur's Gate that I just got through where there's this whole kind of in-game. I'm in like sort of in-game right now, and there's this whole big in-game optional area that kind of has like an optional RPG super boss, right? Who's supposed to be super super hard. Everyone's talking about how he's gonna be so hard to kill and everything, and you might not make it. And his fucking boss music is a completely unique track that is a musical number that has the actual voice actor for the role like singing like about himself as the boss or whatever. It's so fucking cool. And I killed him in one turn.
Yeah,
Over.
yeah.
I was like, fuck, like I'm too fucking strong. I'm literally one punch man in Baldur's Gate right now because it's like I have broken the game so much because that's what I do when I play RPGs is like I just find the most broken synergistic shit I can find and I hammer it and I've actively killed my enjoyment. I could have had so
Yeah.
much more fun had I just like not min-max the shit out of every single one of my
This
parties.
is like the fucking HP Lovecraft grimoire magician's life story. It's like I've become too powerful.
Yeah, really.
Nothing's fun anymore. Money flows to me, love, sex, beauty, everything. Can
Yeah.
I get a challenge? I just need a challenge. Hi everybody. Welcome to Agitator. How do you do it, Kelby? What's the line, the byline?
What's good? This is Agitator, the modern day retelling of Rocky Balboa, starring two mystic juggalo weebs, and today guest starring once again a fan favorite, a host favorite, Ren Collier, here to talk about all the Resident Evil CGI movies. I've been wondering how to title this one because I went searching for some Resident Evil podcasts and I don't know, just the vibe of them. I was like, no, I didn't even have to listen. I was just like, nah,
I'm amazed
nah,
that they even
this ain't it.
exist at all.
Oh, dude, I watched a 3 hour lore video that was fantastic. It's got 5 million views, and it goes through every single Resident Evil property up through Infinite Darkness. I mean,
Yeah.
even the comic books, and they put it all in chronological, not chronological by release, but in terms of the universe.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's something I could never do. Like, I can't compete with that because I don't care about
No.
when.
Is that the Ink Ribbon guy on YouTube?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
Ink
yeah, yeah.
Ribbon.
I've watched
Yeah,
some of his stuff. Yeah.
yeah, it's good. I mean, I'm glad it exists. I'm not knocking it, but it's just, hey, everybody, welcome to our video, and we're going to show you every Resident Evil. Now, some of you might take issue with the fact that we are using the remakes instead of the originals. We don't really care. Sound off in the comments. It's that voice.
Yeah.
That's
And
why people keep coming to this. They're like, I learned nothing, but damn, the voices are so refreshing.
Absolutely. People just love the
oh my,
dulcet agitator boys.
they do. They do.
We're like, what it was it called? R RESP SPM ASMR.
ASMR.
Yeah.
ESP.
ESP, FBI,
We're kind of
DOA.
we're kind of like a CIA, DOA, FBI, ESP type podcast. So I started, I think we all I think you watched them out of order, but I started with Degeneration. So we will start with Degeneration, which came out in, I've got the Wikipedia right here.
2008.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Directed by Makoto Kamiya, who, when I Googled him, I found nothing else.
Yeah.
It is a 2008 Japanese adult CGI biopunk action horror film. By the way, biopunk is badass.
That's a
I want to
thing.
write something
Oh shit.
biopunk.
Yeah, we gotta get into biopunk. Well, I'm rewriting Roughneck, and it's gonna be biopunk. So
Biopunk. That's just a cool word. Not all punks are created equally.
yeah, steampunk is on the lower end of the totem pole.
Yeah, steampunk's down there. Although the people who created steampunk are badass. KW Jeter and Tim Powers, like they invented steampunk, and they're awesome. But then it became a kind of a fat girl thing, I think.
Yeah, I've liked
Real big
everything
Dragon
steampunk.
Con energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's more the cosplayer shit that made that watered that shit down. I've never disliked a steampunk thing that I watched.
So in Degeneration, we
Oh,
begin the.
by the way,
Oh,
is
go
this
ahead,
the
go ahead.
first CGI Resident Evil movie?
No,
Okay, I
No.
didn't think so.
The first
No.
one was this like 4D exterminator thing that was like a tie-in movie to Resident Evil 3 or something. But it's not
Mhm.
like it's more like a 19-minute long short film thing. It's not really like a movie. So I don't count it. It's on
They
the
did
Wikipedia.
they
Yeah.
did an RE4 one too, which is just basically the cutscenes.
Yeah, it's just
put
the
together.
cutscenes from Encore, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But this is like I mean essentially yes, in the sense that we mean. So yeah, I mean they'd had the live action movies, which by the way, one of my students, when I asked them to write down their favorite movies, he was like just straight faced. He was like Resident Evil, the live action stuff with Mila Jovovich. I was like, all right, cool, man. Yeah.
Look,
Hell
the,
Those
yeah.
the
are
first one is fucking good. Okay.
mm-hmm,
Like,
mm-hmm.
I'll say it. Like it's not bad. Like the sequels are like I kind of hate the second one because of like they actually start pulling in like shit like Jill and other characters into it, and it
Mm-hmm.
kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
It feels more like a Sci-Fi Channel original movie than like I kind of like in the first one that Paul Anderson was just like, you know what, fuck all the existing lore, all the existing characters. We're just gonna like tell an original story, like sort of set in a similar world, like similar, umbrella and everything. And it's a fucking good movie. I remember like it was like it was on the very like front end of like the zombie movie revival of like the 2000s, right? Because it came out, I think, before Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake.
Mhm.
And like I felt like it like kicked that off. So like I think like stuff like The Walking Dead is a direct result of Resident Evil, like the Paul Anderson movie, making like zombie stuff cool again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. I fuck with Apocalypse just because I don't know, probably nostalgia. There's a
Mhm.
lot of like the soundtrack is great, it slaps. The mesh top and Mike Epps. Those
Oh yeah.
those three things kind of make it for me.
Yeah, it was cool. Like a bunch of the games ended up using the laser hallway scene from Resident Evil,
Hmm.
like in the games itself. Like I guess the Capcom devs thought that was like such a cool idea because you see it in Resident Evil 4, and then in I think like Dark Side Chronicles, there's like one that's
Mm-hmm.
like literally like directly from the movie, like same design, like with the lights and stuff.
You get a reference to it in was it Vendetta with the strings? They run
Oh
in and
yeah,
they're just like,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean it was influential. I think like people, the first one definitely I think stands up as a good like horror action movie, and the sequels are, hit or miss, but the first one definitely is awesome. But this is about the CG movies. So
Sure, sure.
we'll talk
Actually,
about this PS2 cutscene ass looking movie.
before we get into the movies, it might be a good idea to talk about Resident Evil tropes because every single game that I can think of,
Mhm.
uh, and all these movies follow similar tropes.
Mhm.
The formula to me seems like this: where can we put the characters? Should they be on a boat, on a tropical island? This
In
time they're in a
prison.
city. Maybe they're in prison. Maybe they are in a village, a quaint village. Uh,
Just a quaint little eastern uh village on the east side of the world.
yeah, in the Eastern Slav Republic.
The Eastern Slav Republic.
As little thought as possible goes into the names. Right, the airport is called Harvardville. It's Harvardville Airport. It's the Eastern Slav Republic. There's a character called General Grande. Um, um, and then they encounter increasingly strong enemies until they eventually fight a tyrant, some
Mhm.
variation on a tyrant. And the facility that they're in, which is usually like incredibly, what's the opposite of anachronistic? It's like way too far in the future. But
Yeah.
it's basically like, okay, we're in an old timey mansion, but by the end of the game, you're in like 2001 A Space Odyssey ship, and it's going to blow up, right? There's a
Mhm.
countdown, there's red lights flashing, you have a timer, and then everything
The
eventually
fucking
explodes.
the hallway becomes an elevator.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's literally every single building in the Resident Evil universe has a self-destruct sequence. Like we were watching the one we'll talk about later, like Infinite Darkness. There was like two different self-destruct sequences in that, like the sub self-destructs, and then the fucking like complex that they're in self-destructs. I think every single one of those movies has like a self-destruct sequence, except maybe Death Island, but then Death Island sort of has like a countdown anyway. There's like it's sort of like a race against time at the end. So it's similar in
Yeah.
spirit.
Yeah, with they're trying to get the floodgates to shut
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and even getting down to the like armory facility and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, what are all these subs doing here? Oh, this must be leftovers. I'm like, damn, that's still under Alcatraz. Like they turn Alcatraz into a spaceship. Like
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean
Mm-hmm.
that's something I was thinking about earlier. It's just like I mean, it is. I think anachronistic is the right word. It's just we usually think of that in the opposite direction, but I think it works
right.
for the future too. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
like you've got stuff that's ostensibly set in like the early 2000s and late 90s, but looks
Mm-hmm.
like stuff from fucking Tsutomu Nihei manga, right? Like
Yeah.
you've got like in the first one we're talking about, Generation, like there's like a huge complex. It's like a space colony that's just like the
Mm-hmm.
office building for this like pharmaceutical company. And it's like, where does this stuff come from? And like in Death Island, like Jill just finds a plasma cannon like in a
Yeah.
crate.
and
Like,
sticks
what
it
are
in
you
the
playing
monster's
around in her
mouth.
Alcatraz?
Dude, she sticks it in the monster's mouth. It's so cool. I also think that it's interesting that the real destruction, I mean, Raccoon City, the mansion, these futuristic spots, especially when it comes to the futuristic countdown stuff, it does feel like an archetypal metaphor for the destruction of the future. So it kind of makes sense if you have this zombie plague that is basically ruining the world, like one game at a time.
Mm.
It would make sense that at the end, it's always this vision of a hyper industrialized, mechanized, middle managed kind of pharmaceutical, clean white space that gets destroyed. You know, it's like that. To me, it's saying that idea of the future is toast. Like
Yeah.
even the people survive, but that doesn't.
It's sort of a Chris kind of summarizes it at the end of Vendetta whenever he's just like, yeah, I don't think that far. When was it Jill? No, not Jill. They're all kind of
Claire
blended. Claire. Was it Claire? Yeah, Claire, I think is the one who asks him.
or Rebecca.
I think it might have been Rebecca asks him. This is also a girl power show. Um Rebecca asks him, so like what now? You ever wonder when this shit's gonna stop? Or
Mm.
and he's like, I don't think that far.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Or Leon having this microchip that has all this data to expose politicians on it, and he just won't give it to Claire. And she's like, oh, so you're going to do it your way, huh? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, wait, is his way to let them keep doing this so he can keep stopping them? Like, what the fuck is going? I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get to
Yeah.
Infinite Dark, the shit
Yeah,
show
we'll
that
get
is
to that.
Infinite
I had
Darkness.
questions about that too. I was like very confused by that ending.
Yeah, yeah. But let's start with Degeneration. It's in an airport. I did not hate Degeneration at all. I thought it had a lot of elements to like. I thought the animation was extremely bad.
And I loved that. I mean,
Yeah.
I love how it gets better. I do love the animation in the later ones. It is phenomenal. Is one of the like highlights of the later ones. But I did just kind of love the little PS2 throwback look.
Yeah, it really does look like a cutscene from like a PS2 game. Like everybody's like super shiny looking. It's very like of its era, and it's real rough, but it's charming in its own way. Like Degeneration is like the most vaporwave of all of these movies, right? Like it looks bad, but it has like a charm to it that like I can't deny.
It's
And it
also
tries to
got the
have
clip
character.
that's
Go ahead.
yeah, it's also got the clip that's got to be the intro to this episode.
These damn agitators.
These damn agitators. It also tries to have character development with the chick in it. Like her home gets destroyed. I also love how in Resident Evil, everybody's related, you know, where it's like there'll be this monster with like a dick coming out of its eye or something, and they're like, that's my brother. And it's like, okay, what are the fucking odds?
Yeah, she was cool. I like how she is in the canon as the only white woman that Leon Kennedy has ever been interested in.
Yeah, even
He
mildly.
does seem like he's kind of like when he sees her in that sundress and he sees how she's packing some heat.
Oh, she's stacked, bro.
Yeah,
At the end, I was like,
yeah,
God
yeah,
damn, I didn't know you had those Tigos. I
yeah.
might have
Even
paid more
Leon
attention.
can't deny that.
Yeah, he's only a man. But yeah, no, she she sees her house blown up and she does the whole like falling to her knees dramatically in front of it, which looks hilarious with PS2 graphics, like the dramatic fall to the knees. But it basically, see how well I can remember this plot because I watched it like a week ago. Claire's in the airport and she's already part of TerraSave at this point, right?
Yeah, she's there.
Yeah. So she's with TerraSave. The way that Claire goes after Code Veronica is she joins this organization that is much more interested in, I guess, diplomacy and activism. and getting the Umbrella and what's the other one? What's the other
Tricell.
corporation? Tricell, thank
Well,
you.
the
To,
Tricell's later. The one in fuck, what is the one in Degeneration? It's not Tricell. It's like something UG Pharmaceuticals or something. It's like some other
right,
name.
right. It's something that's hard to remember because they didn't care, so neither should we.
Yeah.
Um, but so she's there to I guess do diplomacy, and she meets up with like two um like are they Iranian? Like what's their I don't know what they're like Middle Eastern people, basically. Uh
Oh, I think
I
they're supposed to be like Indian or something.
I was
oh, they're
gonna say
Indian.
Mom's
Indian
got like the kind of like dress on.
So
Sorry.
Indian. Right, right, right. And there's a little girl there. That's another RE trope, right? There has to be a little girl. How many little boys have been saved in Resident Evil? Zero, I
none
think.
none. They turn into BOWs.
They turn
Yeah,
into
I can only think of
that.
one little boy, and that's Salazar from Resident Evil 4,
Okay,
the
okay.
original GameCube version. And yeah, he's like a 400-year-old, bioweapon. So,
Right, right.
if it,
Exactly,
but it's
exactly.
always got to be Claire. If it's Claire, there's got to be like a little girl for her to like take care of.
Right,
Jill doesn't give a
right.
fuck. Jill doesn't take care of little girls, but Claire always has to.
There's a little girl in Dead Aim.
Or
Uh there's a little girl in the Umbrella Chronicles. Oh, wait, no, that's Jill actually. Jill gets a little girl at one point in the
oh,
Umbrella
okay.
Chronicles in the comic book. But it's never a boy, it's always a girl. I don't know why. I don't know why that is. I don't know what memo is being passed through Capcom where they're like,
Because girl power, this is a feminist series.
It's
mm,
probably what it is because the games, the movies, everything Resident Evil always sort of references and remixes stuff from earlier games. So it's probably just all Resident Evil 2 having Sherry, right? Like,
right.
so that's like, like she sort of sets the trope, and then every other game that has like sort of an escort mission thing, like Ashley in RE4 or anything else, it's got to be like sort of like Sherry.
Got it. Got it. I like that.
No,
I
and
like the idea. Go ahead.
it makes sense that like this we kind of don't really think of it because this series is enormous. Like this franchise is wildly popular and beloved. But well, the CGI movies, I don't know. We'll get to the ratings on them. But the games at least are widely celebrated and known. But wouldn't that be like imagine it wasn't and it was what it was? How much it masturbates on its own like over its own shit. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
constant callback.
We're doing the thing.
We're
We're
doing
doing the thing.
Leon, I'm gonna go on vacation now. I'm gonna finally go on vacation. Guys, I'm trying to have a vacation here.
Leon, the eternal angry tourist who by the way in Vendetta seems to have killed an entire handle of tequila and then goes out to kill zombies. He's just like he shrugs it off. Chris is like, "What are you doing, man? Get your shit together." He's like, "All right, I guess I will." And there's just an empty bottle next to him. But okay, degeneration. Not a whole lot's coming. There is a seed for infinite darkness in degeneration, which is that degeneration begins to focus on the geopolitics and the senators and the behind the scenes kind of stuff, which is my main problem with any Resident Evil movie. I feel
Yeah.
like it's a huge misstep when you begin to include like Senator Ron Davis, unless he's going to get torn apart in like
Yeah.
3 minutes. We don't need that, right?
Mm.
Like this isn't a commentary on it because the show and the games are not based enough to say anything super interesting. They are interesting, right? Like I like that they feel like pharmaceutical companies are all bad guys. I'm
Yeah,
behind
yeah.
that
Yeah, that's good.
100%.
100%.
But
This is
then it's
getting
like,
taken off of YouTube.
yeah, but then their whole thing, like the problem with Resident Evil is that it also believes that vaccines are real. So then they're like, oh, but Rebecca can synthesize the vaccine in 3 minutes, and I can suspend my disbelief for a lot of things, but that's not one of them. Like, where are the trials here? But I liked the airport scene. I really liked that they had an airplane crash into the airport. It felt very video gamey to me, because
Mhm.
that's another thing that Resident Evil does so well, is that it has like helicopters and planes and trucks crash into buildings and create obstacles.
Mhm.
There's something very aesthetically pleasing about like in RE2, like a helicopter on fire that you can't get through that hall in the police station before you get a fire extinguisher.
Mhm.
And then in the remake, when you do, like the Nemesis just
Yeah,
push, or
fucking Mr. X, one
Mr.
hand
X,
flips
yeah,
up.
just
Yeah.
one hands it, yeah. Um, but by the way, RE2, Mr. X, like I didn't realize until I was like 3/4 of the way through the game that they had programmed him to actually follow you. And I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, damn, this shit is crazy. Like I was in the library and I suddenly realized, like, oh, if I climb up this ladder, he does too. Like he just follows you.
Yeah.
Um, but so I like that. I like that the airplane actually crashed. I liked the running through zombies scene. The disposable guy gets disposed of. And then after that, the movie is kind of like muddled until you get to the facility. You know,
Yeah.
it's there's a lot of stuff going. There's a guy whose family was killed, except for his sister. Was that what it was, or did he kill
Yeah.
somebody else? I forget what
Well,
it
he was
was.
an umbrella researcher who was working in Raccoon City, but he was out of town when the shit went down. But his family was like still in Raccoon City, so they all got.
Mm,
But then he
right.
survived, and then he was like forming this whole
He
plan.
was doing the Eric Andre like "let me in" thing, and
Yeah.
they wouldn't let him in. So he becomes a tyrant thing,
Mhm.
and they fight him, and that's the movie pretty much. What
Yeah.
was notable about that movie to you guys? Because nothing is really sticking out.
I mean, I was when I think about this movie, I really honestly think it would have been better if it had stayed smaller scale. Like I like that you brought
Exact,
up
yeah.
the thing about the geopolitics stuff. Like honestly, the entire movie should have just been the airport.
Airport, 100%. I was so
Perfect
shocked when
setting.
they were outside of that Harvardville airport. I thought,
Yeah.
like, okay, that like because there's so many places you could go. I mean, if you think about Denver Airport and all the tunnels and
Yeah.
stuff, you have a
Yeah.
perfect setting for a whole movie. So when they were outside of it, like talking to the military, and the senator said,
Yeah.
"I'm safe, and now you're all in trouble." I was just like, what are we doing here? What are we
Yeah.
doing here? I mean, the later movies, like Vendetta and Death Island, really understand the assignment for an RE movie, where they're
Mhm.
like, they're in there, they're fighting creatures, that's it.
Yeah.
And I thought they did that great. But this one in Infinite Darkness really seemed to uh, try to have a story, which I think is the fatal flaw for Resident Evil.
Though
Yeah.
I did,
It's
I liked the senator of degeneration, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
like any of the politicians in Infinite Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, like it really is a lost opportunity because that airport, like just escaping the airport, that whole thing, like that's a perfect setup for like a horror movie. That's a perfect
Yeah.
like I forget who said that. I don't know if it was the Red Letter Media guys who were talking about like Trimmers or something. And they said like it's like the perfect movie setup. You have a bunch of people trapped together in a place where there's some sort of external threat that's like either trying to get in or they're trying to escape from. And that's like the basis for like a good horror or like monster movie, right? So like once they're out and they go to this weird fucking superstructure, megastructure pharmaceutical company thing, and there's this whole big action sequence. It almost felt like that like was in it because someone was like, well, it's Resident Evil, so we've got to have like the lab and we've got to have the self-destruct sequence and everything. It feels like they like weren't confident enough in their original premise to just like go with just the airport as the setting. I would love to know more about like the production or if there's any like interviews or whatever with the guys because it really feels like almost like two different movies. Like you got disc one and disc two, like it's a PlayStation game or something.
Yeah. Something else to that airport too, the plane crashing into the airport. is
Mm.
that these movies feel like they have a limitless budget and they're all made for like $1 million or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Uh,
perks of the fully CGI
Mhm.
movie.
I tried to find an interview, but San Diego Comic Con exclusive Resident Evil Degeneration interview from 2008, but I could Wayback Machine it. Here, Wayback Machine this. This might be fun.
Did you even try Wikipedia? Oh, there's a kind of a Mandela effect going on with this movie too, because I feel like I was way younger when I saw this poster and it came out in '08, and that's just not making any sense to me. I feel
It's because
like
they're all like the same, dude. It's just because they're all the same, I
so
think.
I probably saw a video game poster and I'm thinking I saw Degeneration or something.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got this weird Mandela effect thing too with this movie where it's like I swear to God that there was like an actual game, a Resident Evil game that was like set in an airport. Like this, like that whole sequence was in an actual video game. But apparently, either I like saw a clip of this like years ago and have conflated that with other things in my brain or something. Like I don't know.
Yeah, because they
Uh,
no, none of them were an airport.
Yeah, because there's some of the Resident Evil games I haven't played. Like I haven't played like Outbreak and uh Dark Side Chronicles and some of those other ones. Like I've seen videos of them, but I've only played like the mainline games aside from six, which I feel like at this point, after watching these movies and they all have like tie-ins to Resident Evil 6, I feel like that's the big gap in my Resident Evil experience. I need to go like get it on Steam or something and play through it.
What are some of the tie-ins? What am I missing? Because I haven't played six.
Well, Infinite Darkness was apparently sort of like a thing to hype up the release of six. Like it goes directly into six, apparently. Because like that's why it's talking about like Tricell and everything, because I think Tricell's the big villain in six. So it like sets up a bunch of like plot elements. And I know parts of six like take place in China and stuff. So there's like the Chinese connection from Infinite Darkness. So
people hate six,
Oh
dude.
shit.
I
I was
know
about
I
to buy it today.
yeah,
It's
I've never
10 it's
played it.
$10 on PlayStation. I mean, like that one and five or 10. I bought three
Five
remake.
rules.
Yeah,
Five
Five
five's
is the
rules. I
best
played
game.
five. Five is
yeah,
badass.
I
Yeah.
played five back in the day.
But
I just
people
never played
hate
six because
six.
like yeah, I mean people I've listened to other people, which is what I
Mhm.
should never do. But yeah, I remember it just got such bad reviews back in the day. And I remember watching some gameplay and I was like, this doesn't really look like a Resident Evil game. It's just I think at the time I was like so burned out on like third person cover shooters because that was like the big thing at the time. Like the Gears of War
Mm.
games and all that kind of stuff. It was like every fucking company was like, yeah, we got to have an over the shoulder. It was the Resident Evil 4 curse, right? Like Resident Evil 4 created this entire genre of video games. And then every single game, every big action game for like 10 years was like an over the shoulder third person
Yes.
cover shooter, you know?
Yeah. Oh, bro, did y'all ever play this game? What was it called? Dark. It was it might have been well might as well have been called Resident Evil. It was called like Dark Shadow or something gay like that.
Dark
Uh
Sector.
Dark Sector. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have
I
that
yeah,
blade that oh man, that shit was
we had the little like
badass.
tri blade thing.
Yeah, you have the tri-blade and the demon arm that
Yeah,
yeah, you look like a Hot Topic poster child. And
yeah. Yeah, Dark
I
Sector
looked
was
up the interview and it didn't say anything because it's an interview with a Japanese man. So every question is just what is the plot of this one? He said it is a sequel to Resident Evil. Were you happy that you could set it in an airport? Yes. We thought that was great. And there was no budget.
yeah.
So what can you tell us about it? Not much.
Yeah, it's a,
That's it.
wow.
That's the interview. Yeah.
This is why we need to interview Japanese people so we can be
Because
like,
as soon as they
"Hey,
do that bullshit,
why are
we'd be
you
like, for real.
so freaky?"
yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you answer my fucking questions? You know what I'm interested in.
Answer my question or I'm gonna cut your pinky off.
Yeah. What did he just feed you?
Uh, uh, I was gonna say a peanut. Oh, what is this? Like an almond?
Yeah.
Kelby's like, is this shit? Like, did you just put a
It's just some
turkey?
hairball.
Just comes and throws something into my mouth. I'm like, okay.
But yeah, I thought that I liked the fight at the end of Degeneration. I thought the escape into water was pretty cool, like away from the
Yeah.
self-destruct sequence. I thought that was neat. I liked the tyrant. I thought that it looked charmingly PS2,
Yeah,
and you know, oh, another RE trope. Leon has to hang from shit. He's
yeah,
always hanging from shit.
yeah.
And he does that here.
Yeah.
Um, how did they kill this guy? I forget how this bad guy died
I think
in
he
this
just like
movie.
fell into the abyss
Right,
because like the
like in Infinite
self-destruct sequence
Darkness.
was just like all of the sections of this lab just fell into a bottomless pit
Mm,
instead of it blowing up or whatever.
hmm.
Um, yeah, and he just like he fell down, but of course it had like the thing where his like tongue comes up and grabs your leg, and then Leon has to like shoot.
Right, right. He shoots him in the eye, right?
Yeah,
He's got the little eyeball flicker thing, and
yeah,
you know, a rocket launcher can't take these things down, but then like a well-placed bullet to the eye, the enormous eye on the shoulder is what does it. But I don't think that Degeneration had it wasn't campy enough to
Mhm.
talk about that much, I don't think, because it didn't have there's a ton of fun shit to talk about in the other four movies. But if there's one sort of criticism that I have about this movie is that it's just not stupid enough. It's not like fun enough. The way that all the other ones are, even the one that I really hate. Um, so yeah, that's all I got to say about Degeneration. What about y'all?
Yeah, yeah, it's got the curse of being the first too, because they get funnier and funnier the more they repeat themselves in different ways, but just straight face. Like if I were to first show somebody Vendetta and they didn't know anything else about Resident Evil, they would think it was badass and they probably wouldn't laugh at all the parts that I'd be laughing at because it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, oh, here we go again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I said my piece on Degeneration. Yeah, just I think it's rough, it's early, and it shows. They definitely hit their stride with the later ones, but this one I think it really needs to be like I don't know, it's like not a remake, but I would love to see just a version of this movie that focuses just on the airport stuff. Forget about the complex at the end. You could have had everything in this movie take place in this one really good horror movie location, but
You can blow up the airport.
yeah,
There's no rules that say you can't. Like blow it up
yeah,
too.
maybe
Why not?
maybe the U.S. government blows it up Raccoon City style because there's a second outbreak happening. They decide to sterilize.
Yo, dude, you're so right because the Denver airport is probably the closest thing in real life that we have to like a Resident Evil style structure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if y'all have been to it, but like
Yeah.
you'll be walking and there'll be a Jamba Juice and a like a 7-Eleven, and then you'll pass a picture of like men in gas masks
Yeah,
stabbing children to death, like a huge painting. And then like you walk past a horse that has these glowing red ruby eyes, and
yeah. I remember seeing that horse when I was
it's
driving out, and I was like, "What the fuck?" There's like a giant
yeah,
horse on the outside of the airport with like glowing eyes.
yeah, yeah.
It's
It's so Resident Evil. Like you
yeah,
can hear the music like as you walk through that airport.
yeah.
So
There's like
moving on.
puzzles and shit. You need like little emblems that you can
Yes,
like they can
right,
stand out
exactly.
in secret tunnels.
Right. It's like you need the Silver Medusa album or album. You'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense. To get into the B terminal. Okay, cool. Um, Damnation is where I think the series really kicks off. I thought that movie was a lot of fun. And
yeah.
it does what we're complaining about here. It condenses the action to a focal point. It is the Eastern Slav Republic, and Leon has been dropped in there to do what he does, to see what's up. And I don't know, it's so localized and it's got great characters. And when they do go geopolitical, the woman is like a Metal Gear villain because she's
Yeah,
really good at karate.
yeah.
That's how you make that shit work. If you want to talk about like the big wigs who are destroying the world,
Mhm.
make them really good at karate.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yeah, she's sick, and she's not even like enhanced like Wesker or something, right? She's just
Right.
a natural badass. She
Mm-hmm.
like I think I mentioned that in Discord. Yeah, she feels like a Hideo Kojima character, like
Yep.
just transplanted into this movie.
Yep. There's her, and then there is it Mia who's like the sniper wolf character? What's her name? Mara, the daughter of the Bane guy.
Oh, that's later. That's in Vendetta.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
Dead or
Vendetta.
right.
Alive.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Girl,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No,
Yeah, that
Damnation is my Wigga, JD,
Yeah.
and who else? That was some of the political like shit hit in Damnation too because it was just like very subtle and character based, where he is like coming, he's like crying to Leon, like then help us, you know, and basically asking like America to help them or whatever. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that's kind of as far as that shit really goes. You gotta, it's like you can unravel that or look deeper into it if you want, but it's not really.
The whole setup in that movie of the plot, I still don't quite get. Like, because just to describe to the viewers what it's like you have this place called the Eastern Slav Republic. It's like super generic name. Imagine it's a place like Belarus or Moldova or something. It's like a former Soviet state that is not anymore because the USSR has broken up, and it's ruled by a bunch of oligarchs, so like Czech, like most Eastern European countries, and but they're like trying to join the UN. So it's like, and you've got these whole like faction of rebels who are like fighting an insurgency there, who Leon like is like investigating and stuff because they're using bioweapons. And but it's like, what are they fighting? Who are they? Like, are they communists? Are they like Russian? Are they like wanting to like are they like the is it like a Ukraine situation where you've got like Russian separatists there or something? It's never really like explained like what are the rebels like fighting for? Like they talk about like generic like oh freedom,
Independence.
independence, but it's like you're
Yeah.
already independent. Like you're literally an independent Eastern European state. And you're talking about joining the U, just not want them to join the UN. Like it doesn't make any sense. And thankfully, like the movie doesn't dwell on it too much. Like you don't really need to know this stuff. But it did bother me when I was watching. I was like, who? What are they fighting for? Like who are the rebels? Like it didn't make any sense.
Independence.
Independence. That's right. No, I think you're right to not think too much about it. But I also think that you got it right when you said that they are fighting against entrance into the EU or NATO, or at this
Yeah,
point it
because the
would be
country's like
NATO.
trying to join the UN.
Right. Right.
So I guess by
And
extension, NATO. But yeah,
yeah, so basically they find out that there is a rebel leader who can control liquors.
Mhm.
Basically, I feel like this was the first time I saw in the series that there was this idea that zombies could be controlled, which
Yeah.
becomes a bigger thing later on.
Yeah.
Especially in Death Island, where he has like his, homing mosquitoes or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's got such great action scenes, right? And I think also the leap in animation is
Yeah.
really good. It's a 4-year gap, but Damnation is head and shoulders above Degeneration in terms of it just looks cool to see Leon walking through these deserted, bombed out Slavic streets and occasionally encountering a licker or a zombie or whatever. It's a cooler setting, I think, and they don't ever change that setting. That's just where the movie is.
Yeah, it ties into Resident Evil 4 because they're like controlling the liquors and stuff through plaga parasites, like the same parasites that were in Resident Evil 4. Um, which actually that was like another complaint about Damnation I had, was that all of the plaga infected humans in the town that Leon and the rebels are in, they all act like zombies. They're sort of like, and like sort of
Mm-hmm.
shuffling and stuff. But that's not how the plaga infected humans in like Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 4 act. They act like normal people. They can even like talk and like speak to each other and communicate, right? They're just like
Mm-hmm.
controlled. So, like they're mind controlled by whoever the the queen or king plaga is. Like in 4 it's like Sadler, right? Who's like
Mm-hmm.
controlling all the plagas and he can like see through their eyes and stuff. So it's like cool they bring that back, but I wish they'd been more consistent with that, because it's like that's kind of what makes the plaga things like scarier than zombies, because they're just like people. They're just literally normal people who want to like rip you apart with machetes and axes and stuff, which is way scarier to me than like zombies.
Yeah, yeah, some crazy scenario
Yeah,
almost,
yeah,
but not
exactly.
even.
Think they can strategize, like that's what makes that was like the big leap when people play. I remember the first time I ever played Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube. I was like used to like Resident Evil games with like slow moving zombies that you could just like walk around, or all you had to do was just like go into a different room and they couldn't get to you. But in Resident Evil 4, like you're like barricading a house and they're like breaking the windows upstairs and getting ladders and like climbing up and shit, and, like throwing stuff through the windows at you. And it's like a whole different kind of like scary situation to be in. And I was like kind of disappointed that Damnation didn't go more with that, like have it more consistent with previous depictions.
Yeah, you don't need to know the lore to enjoy these, but you do if you're gonna make one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it honestly, I wonder if it was because like they wanted to make it accessible to people who maybe haven't played the games, right? And it like it may be hard to like communicate to an audience who maybe isn't super familiar with the games, that these people are like infected by a parasite or whatever. It's just like visually and maybe from a storytelling perspective easier to just make them like zombies, right? Like everybody knows what zombies
Yeah,
are. Just make them like zombies. Maybe that was the thought process behind it.
probably to make it more standalone
Mm-hmm.
and accessible.
Mm-hmm.
The On the visual tip, also, there's so many cool kills in this one. Like the crowbar, well, whole time that Leon is kind of running with JD in the beginning, uh, they get attacked in that little room and Leon's got the knife tricks, and then with
Mm-hmm.
the crowbar later on, you get that kind of first person POV with the crowbar going all the way through the skull and all
Yeah.
bloody out the end. Like that shit was that's when I was like fully won over and like, okay, yeah, no, I like that the visuals are better here.
Yeah. Yeah, it was tight. And it eventually, like my favorite part of Damnation is still like the final sequence with the two or like the multiple tyrants.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
like that part was like really killer, because you've got you've got sort of the what is the deuteragonist or whatever, and this
Mm-hmm.
Eastern European guy who has taken the plaga so he can like control the liquors and stuff. So he's using the liquors to like fight the tyrants, and then he just crashes a tank into one, and like Leon's like trying to. And my favorite part about that sequence is in all the other Resident Evil games, like a tyrant's biggest weakness was just like a grenade or like a rocket launcher, right? Like
Uh-huh.
usually thrown a rocket launcher to kill a tyrant. And that's the first thing Leon does is like pick up a rocket launcher and shoot it at it, and it just fucking casually catches the rocket and like throws it
Mm-hmm.
away. And I was just like, oh fuck, that's actually like a pretty good little like subversion of a trope from Resident Evil. Like that, I
Mm-hmm.
like that. That was clever.
Also liked the tank too when he's trying to get
Yeah, he's just like
it's like
dodging
ding, hitting
it.
him against the side of the head.
Yeah, it's like I think I said this in Discord, but that part I'm just like, why did they even make liquors and zombies and shit? Why don't they just like use tyrants? Like they're obviously like superior in every single way to every other BOW. It's like they can think, like they can act rationally, they can take orders, because they make a big deal about BOWs can't be controlled. except for this BOW that's been around since the very first game that we can control.
Because they got to save it for the boss fight.
Exactly, it's got to be the boss fight. You got to
Save
have
it for
little
the boss
enemies
fight.
in the boss fight.
And also, if you are like me and you're retarded, you haven't thought about that until right now.
Yeah, I
was
didn't
like,
think about it at all.
I guess the very first tyrant couldn't be controlled because he like impales Wesker, right? Like Wesker lets him out, and then he fucks up Wesker, and you have to kill him.
Yeah.
But like everything from like Mr. X on, and like Nemesis and all those, these are like powerful BOWs that take orders and like can follow an objective and like pursue a plan and everything, like can act rationally. So yeah.
Maybe they're just harder to make. Maybe
Yeah.
it's like maybe the cost ratio is like not there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we have to sacrifice like 3,000 people and it takes a year to get a tyrant right. But you can make a zombie like that. So maybe it's expediency.
I read a whole like really nerdy thread on Reddit that was talking about the possible like the feasibility of tyrants in Resident Evil and like how much it would realistically cost to engineer something like that. And like the long story short, like it's completely insane. Like it would never be feasible. It would cost so much to even make one of them, and it can be killed by like small arms fire. Like
there you go.
Like at the end of damnation, like an A10 just swoops. I thought that was awesome though. Like I love the A10 like coming in and just like gunning down the one tyrant.
Yeah, that shit was so tight, and like half of its body pops off. Like that that was a cheering moment. It's kind of the same question as if black boxes survive airplane crashes, why don't they make the plane out of the black box?
Yeah.
Well, why don't they just make a dude who's made out of nuclear bombs? Just do that, you know? Like his arms are nukes, his head is a nuke.
And then you'd have Metal
Gear. Then you'd have Metal Gear, yeah, exactly.
Nuclear armed bipedal tank.
Yeah, which you can still kill with a rocket launcher.
Yeah.
Gotta talk about JD, our favorite wigger.
This one had the most emotional resonancy with me. The damnation. Whenever like I saw it coming, he like they tease you, like they play with your heartstrings because he survives longer than you think he's going to, and then he survives even longer, and then the inevitable finally happens, and you're like, oh damn, here comes the tears of blood, and he's already when he dabs up Leon, I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah. He's just the Eastern European guy that loves American movies and fried chicken and burgers.
Yeah, he has bars too. Like he has that line where he's like,
in America.
He's like, made in America. It's like, we hate America, but we love what you make. All right, cool. Right on. That's like, the whole world.
I own 50 DVDs, none of them pirated.
It feels like that's sort of a commentary on Resident Evil itself in a way, because like Resident Evil, like a lot of Japanese media, is like heavily informed by like sci-fi and horror movies from America, right? Like the entire thing. It's funny because like I don't know if you have you ever seen Sweet Home? Actually, is it called Sweet Home? The movie might be named called differently, but it's a Japanese horror movie that had an NES game that was based on it, and that NES game is what was the original inspiration for Resident Evil.
Okay.
Because it's like a ghost story, like it's about like ghosts and like this haunted mansion and stuff. But everything else in Resident Evil, like all of the laboratory and all that kind of stuff, takes inspiration from American horror movies. Like I even feel like the taking care of the little girl stuff comes directly from like Aliens, right? Where Sigourney Weaver's like taking care of Newt. Like, especially like, I don't know, there's just like so many callbacks to American action stuff in these movies.
There are a lot of callbacks to American action movies, and I love it when it's put through a Japanese filter because the values are so different. Like the value of respecting hierarchy So you'll have these characters who go against corrupt governments, pharmaceutical companies, but it's on some bigger philosophical tip about treason and like betraying the country.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the way that the units work, like you'll see Americans say things like, oh, well, that's the commanding officer. So you better show respect and stand down. And in American movies, like we're like, what? We don't, that's not how that shit works. Like they still have that kind of, this is the boss, you're the employee. The only real bad guys are the bosses who are betraying the country, right? Who are selling you out.
Yeah, I feel like if this was made by Americans, Leon would be like sort of like a renegade, right? He's always like disobeying orders and like going again there, like, Leon, you got to turn in your badge.
Right.
And
he never turns
Leon's
in
a
his
good
badge.
boy. He always follows his orders, even to the point
he
makes sense for his character.
Yeah, he doesn't expose the government because those are his bosses, basically. It's a really interesting twist on everything to have a hero be like, no, I know that these guys are responsible for countless civilian deaths.
Yeah.
But they're my bosses. So
they provide my purpose because
I'll fight them.
This is my job.
I'll fight them, but I'll never betray them.
Yeah. He like has material evidence that the US government like had ties with a pharmaceutical company that led to a like US American city being like nuked. He's like, no, I'm going to do it my way.
We're going to do it my way. Which is apparently following orders and just like continuously stamping out fires everywhere they get raised. It's like, oh, we need you to go to oddly enough, zombie outbreak. It's in Boise this time. And Leon's like, all right, I guess I'll go do it. And like backflips off of his chair. It's like, I'll go.
All you gotta do is tell him there's gonna be an Asian woman there.
Yeah.
On his way.
It's like there's a countdown in Infinite Darkness whenever that Asian chick shows up. It's like, oh, where's Leon? They're alone in the break room. Here we go. It's like, we should go out sometime.
Wait, did he hook up with the Chinese girl in Infinite Darkness?
No, but he hits on her like literally the first scene they have together.
Oh, okay.
He wastes no time asking her out.
Because she points a gun at his face. He's like, I'm not a rat.
Yeah.
And then it's love after that. Like they're showing him like her fucked up fungus plant brother.
Yeah.
He's like, so you trying to fuck or what? Like what's going on?
Yeah, I guess we're skipping ahead here to Infinite Darkness, but I thought that was really funny how he like literally asked 0 questions when she was telling him all this stuff about her brother and everything. Like he doesn't question any of it. He's just like, whatever you say. I'll believe
my man. That's my man right there. Leon's so badass.
I don't care that you just like killed a bunch of American servicemen on the submarine and like you tried to kill me.
Yo, okay.
I don't give a shit.
Dude, all right. We got to come back to it because I will go off on like the collateral damage from Vendetta on becomes insane.
Oh my god.
Let's move to Vendetta.
Okay.
Arguably the best in the series, I would say. I would put it number 1 as well. Yeah.
Hands down.
What happens in Vendetta? What is the plot of Vendetta?
It's about a guy whose wedding got drone striked by the CIA and decides to take down the United States of America using bioweapons to get revenge for killing his hot wife, who also happens to look exactly like Rebecca Chambers.
Yeah.
So right there, the most like
that would be Ren. That'd be if somebody killed Ren's Rebecca Chambers' wife, we'd all be dead right now.
Yeah, like just killed my girlfriend. Like, I'm not joking. My girlfriend literally looks like Rebecca Chambers, and like She literally like I played Resident Evil Zero like in I don't know like 2004 whenever it came out, and the course of my entire life was like set from that point on. I'm like I'm going to date girls who look like
Yeah.
Rebecca Chambers, and yeah,
Did you meet her on a train?
I didn't meet her on a train, unfortunately.
Okay.
I didn't get to
Yeah.
have the full like Billy Cohen experience, but
That would have been so sick.
but he's like the most relatable, like sympathetic Resident Evil villain because he's like, yeah, I'd probably be pretty pissed at the U.S. government too if fucking they just drone strike my wedding for. I mean, I guess he was like an arms trafficker or whatever, but literally everyone is like,
Who among us?
yeah, who
Has
hasn't
not trafficked
sold like
arms.
bioweapons to terrorist organizations? You know,
I
Or
mean,
who
that's
wouldn't
just an
if given the
American
opportunity
thing,
for a
right?
paycheck?
yeah, don't
Dude,
hate the player, hate the game, right?
Dude, if you flashed 5 zeros in front of Kelby and he just had to traffic a bioweapon,
Yeah.
that bioweapon would get trafficked.
Yeah,
How many fives? Bro, I'd do it for like two. Like, give me
2 0.
$900. Yeah.
it's like $500.
That's 3 extra zeros.
I could do that in a day, right? Like $500 for a day's worth of work. Like,
For
I'm
5
cool.
zeros, I'll traffic a bioweapon and cook you dinner for a week. You know?
Yeah, it's like, do you want me to shoot somebody too? You just want me to take them somewhere?
Like you got me on retainer for 5 zeros. I mean, whatever you need to happen.
yeah, I'll come like
This
wash your
movie-
dog and
This movie does a weird Vertigo thing where like so because this guy is so horny for his dead wife, he kidnaps Rebecca Chambers and then puts her like in a literal like wedding dress and dresses her up to look exactly like his dead wife.
Like
and
a
it's
hot
just
one
like
too, with like a
Vertigo
choker and shit. Like
Yeah.
it was a hot little dress too. I was like, okay, all right. Had her titties all poking out and stuff. I was
Yeah.
like, okay. I didn't know Rebecca was stacked like that.
She's a little stacked. She's not no Jill.
No,
the
she's
girl
not.
from-
She's not.
but-
She's not. She's not Tiggo Jill.
She's sporty, all right, as evidenced by the photo that you can find in Wesker's desk in Resident Evil 2.
she's got the bees that can course it up.
Yeah.
No, yeah, and I like how he keeps her arm too. He still has his wife's arm that he takes the
He's such a good man. He like
This is her. I can sew it on to you. I was like,
Yeah.
all right, cool.
like he rocks. He's Glenn Arias is probably one of my favorite Resident Evil villains. Even like if we're talking about like the games too. Like he's such a fully because a lot of the Resident Evil games like don't really have like very well fleshed out villains. I think like my favorite ones are probably like 4 and like I like Wesker and everything. Glenn Arias is kind of like a Wesker light. He's also like
He looks like
enhanced or whatever.
Wesker. Yeah.
Yeah, he does like kind of a Wesker thing. Him and Chris have this like fight sequence that's basically just like the Chris and Wesker fight scene from I think it had they fight in Resident Evil 5, but they also fight in Code Veronica like that, I think. Because Code Veronica
They do. Yeah, they fight, but they don't nothing happens. They get like separated by a fallen pylon or something. And they're like, we'll finish this later.
Yeah. And speaking of Chris, I think no. In 5, he'd already started hitting the trend. Because like that's my favorite like headcanon thing about Chris is that like after the event, because if you in Resident Evil 1, he's not that jacked. He's just like a normal looking guy, right? But then Resident Evil 5, the guy has like biceps thicker than my thighs, right? Like he is juiced to the fucking gills. He's absolutely on performance enhancing drugs, and I just
It's
like
HGH Chris. Huge
Yeah,
head,
HGH
huge Joe
Chris.
Rogan head.
Yeah. And it's like that he just did all that so that he could beat Wesker's ass. He's like, when I run back into Wesker, I'm gonna be so jacked that I'm just gonna stomp his ass out.
Yeah.
Hell
So
yeah.
go ahead.
I was gonna say the fights.
Yeah. Vendetta
dude,
has really good action sequences.
I wanted to bring up that Vendetta is like the beginning of the insane civilian casualties that are never mentioned. So there's a motorcycle chase.
He's chasing 2 dogs on the highway.
Yeah, on the highway, and the way that he kills them, he kills one and it falls, and like 3 cars pile up behind it and explode, and then he like drops a grenade, and I'm like, those are just people.
Those are just normal
Also,
ass people driving to work. They just got fucking vaporized by Leon Kennedy's like collateral damage.
and there's I forget because my memory sucks, but there's one point where somebody fires an energy weapon in this. I think it's Vendetta.
Yes,
And
it's
it takes out buildings, like
Mm.
Yep.
as it doesn't kill the thing, but it takes out skyscrapers. And I'm like, how many thousands of people just died?
It takes out just
And
part because the tyrant merges with you got Max Dude and Ares kind of like merge together into this giant two-headed, tyrant, and it takes out Mask Dude's head, and so he's just like hanging there like, oh, my friend. And then it also takes out, it 9/11's like 5 different skyscrapers, just
with
sends
lights
them,
on, they all have lights on, by the
just
way.
sends them crumbling to the ground.
And then the movie, like the big climax of the movie is an actual like T-virus like gas attack on like New York City, right? Where like a bunch of just civilians get zombified and start killing people. Like the civilian casualties in this movie are like immense.
And they're like, we got to take out these tanks. And then there's like a bad guy that shows up, and they're like, I'll go take out the tanks. You fight the bad guy. It's like, no, I think the tank, like, you should both probably try to take out the tanks first and then deal with the bad guy, because the tanks are going to turn people into zombies, and the zombies are going to kill people. And they're like,
yeah,
we'll split. It's division of labor.
That'll just give us more work. That'll give us more purpose.
But do you think, and I'm being half serious here, like, do you think that's kind of a Japanese thing? Do you think that like the whole civilians as an afterthought thing, going back to the bomb and going back to them culturally, like, do you think that they can just, because American movies make a habit out of, if a building gets destroyed, they let you know that it's been evacuated, but there's always one toddler in the building, and you see it, and it goes like, meh, 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 and then the hero has to save it. In Resident Evil, it's like, and like buildings blow up, and they're like, did we get him? is he dead?
What year was Vendetta?
2017.
Yeah, there was like, okay, so this is my theory. I think you're onto something there, but I also think it was a trend in action movies around that time to have like immense civilian casualties. Because I remember this was like a big point of Man of Steel that people had a problem with. Was like in the big final action sequence where Superman's fighting Zod, just like 10,000 people get killed and like
Good point. Yeah.
So I do feel like at the time there's like just something in the water where this was like a trope that you saw all the time in action movies. Because I think that like the Transformers movies also did this a lot too, where you had places that had like a lot of people in them like getting blown up and stuff. It was almost like a spectacle thing. And then there was a big backlash against that. And I think you started to see movies being like, oh no, the buildings were all evacuated, so it's not a big deal.
That was the whole plot of Captain America Civil War. They were like, y'all have killed so many people.
Yeah.
And Downey Jr. is like, damn, I feel bad. And Captain America is like, I don't, bitch, America.
Neither does Leon. Leon doesn't
really
feel
like
bad either.
I really like
think
the
Leon loses sleep. Sorry, go ahead.
I really like the bike chase sequence in this, but actually my favorite sequence in Vendetta, and it was the one that like I think I wanted me to like recommend this movie to you guys, was the like the hallway shootout with Chris and Leon, like double teaming.
Oh my god.
Like that is such a good sequence. Like
dude,
just
when
in terms
I
of
say
like action choreography, it's fucking incredible.
Dude, so the way this scene works is Leon, so Chris is already like Muay Thaiing and Jiu-Jitsuing and just every martial art. He's MMAing. these zombies.
He's like, yeah, he's like
Leah,
doing duplexes on him. He's like using his like assault rifle to do like CQC shit on the zombies, like all over
yes,
bodies.
yes,
So cool.
dude. And then Leon drives in on a motorcycle. How did the motorcycle get in there? Who gives a shit, bitch?
He says he has a great fucking line when he pulls it, he whips into the hallway on a motorcycle and he says, "Sorry it took so long. I had to take the stairs."
Yeah, yeah. Fucking
I
amazing.
think Leon
And
was just happy to like have an audience for a one-liner. Because that's my other like favorite Leon trope is that like he's always one-lining no matter what the situation, no matter if there's even anyone around to hear him do the one-liner, he's always got to like make some sarcastic remark about whatever's going on.
should have
Like,
brought
oh,
some cheese.
yeah,
Yeah.
where's everyone going?
Um
Bingo.
but when he shows up, dude, the action sequence that commences from that, um, I think I sent you guys this in like the Discord, but I was getting high off the action.
Yes.
And I was that wasn't a euphemism or a metaphor. I was feeling like dizzy and like this is the greatest shit. So the scene that mostly gets shared from Vendetta is the RAS Redfield fight, right? Where
Yeah.
they're shooting at each other and like it's gun fu taken to the
Yeah.
most extreme place you could think of. But the real masterpiece of Vendetta is the hallway zombie CQC sequence.
Yeah.
It's just so incredible. I mean,
Yeah. It's like
so
up there
artfully
for
done.
me. It's like up there with stuff like Hard Boiled and like John Woo movies.
Absolutely.
Like, it is
Yeah.
on the
Yes.
same level with that stuff. Like if you watch none of these movies, like watch Vendetta, it's completely standalone. You really don't need to know anything about the other movies. Like just watch Vendetta for that like scene alone.
Yeah. Yeah. It is it's a total masterpiece. And I tried to see what else that director did, but it was only this one. And I do think I have a theory that Infinite Darkness didn't go over well. And I feel like the director of ID who did Death Island,
Mhm.
I feel like he tried to emulate that
Yeah.
in Death Island
Mhm.
to varying degrees of effect. But
Mhm.
Vendetta is just like, I would go so far as to say that Vendetta has in terms of action movies, how you said like Hard Boiled, I'd put it in my top 5 actually.
Yeah.
In terms of action sequence, and I include John Wick in that.
It rivals the
everything.
Old Boy hallway sequence.
Absolutely, 100%.
It's
Which
just
for like a CGI Resident Evil movie,
Yeah.
for you to say like, oh, this is almost, well, it is, I think, on a par with these classic movies of the genre. People would say, right, you're
Yeah.
being cute.
They think you're insane.
And then it's like, watch it.
yeah.
And then they watch it. It's like, God damn, dude. Just like there's so much aesthetic things that I like punching a zombie with the barrel of your gun, like through its throat, and then like reloading it while you still have the barrel through the zombie's head, and
Mhm.
like seeing the shell eject, and he like real quick, like he does that thing where he flips the gun up and like, and it all gets reloaded. It's so
Mhm.
tight.
Yeah. I love all the like Leon stuff where he's doing like because Leon is basically just John Wick at this point. Like he's even doing like the sort of like weird pistol kind of like grip
Yeah.
stuff like in the
Yeah.
John Wick movies and stuff. Like and yeah, like him doing like takedowns where he'll like take down a zombie's legs and like use a zombie as like cover for other ones and stuff, or he's like moving
Mhm.
them around. It's just it's so good. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the people who made it obviously. What? Wait, was John? When was the first John Wick movie?
John Wick, the first John Wick movie. I want to say 2016. John
Okay,
Wick.
okay.
Mm,
It has to be before this movie because I mean,
2014. 2014.
Okay.
3 years
okay.
before. Yeah.
They
this scene was
definitely took from
obviously
John
inspired
Wick.
by John Wick.
Yeah.
Totally. But
100%.
it's like John Wick, but what if your opponents were trying to bite you?
Yeah, yeah,
That's what makes it interesting. Is that
and
like,
couldn't be killed by just like small arms fire, right? Like in John Wick, somebody gets like tapped twice in the chest and they're dead or whatever. But in this, it's like only headshots are going to count anyway. So it adds some interesting an interesting angle to this sort of like CQC action.
and it's so balletic, and the way that the camera moves through it. This is something that could only be CGI.
Yeah.
You couldn't do this live action.
Oh
It
yeah,
would,
cameras don't exist. Like, how would you rig up the camera to get all those angles that they do in
Mhm.
such that tight little hallway and these fluid shots following all the action going up under them as they slide under a zombie and then like it and
Vendetta's a good
Leon.
argument for like why these movies can like why CG can work for action movies, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because normally
Right.
I'm like a diehard, like I like squibs, I like practical effects and stuff. But like if it's this well done and you're doing shit that you can only do in CG, like I can respect that, right? Like you're
Right.
doing you
That's
wouldn't be
it.
able to do. So
Yep. That's it. It has to be something that you can only do with CGI.
mm,
That's like if you have unlimited possibilities
mm,
and you can do it on a couple $1 million budget, you should. You're
yeah,
not trying to emulate what other action movies can do. You are trying to surpass them.
yeah. You're
And I
taking
think,
advantage of every like thing that's given to you, right? And
right,
I love to see that.
which is why that final boss fight between Chris and Arias, uh, not the final one, because of course he gets, he turns into a monster. It's a whole thing. But that gunfight was like a Twitter meme for a while because they were like, "Oh, look at how ridiculous this is.
Yeah,
Isn't this funny?" Number one, yes, it is
yeah.
funny,
It's very goofy looking.
but it's also fucking awesome.
Yeah, it also
It's
came
also really, it's
out.
also cool.
Yeah. I mean, people try to pretend like what was that Christian Bale movie that the gun kata stuff came from?
Oh, Equilibrium.
Yeah.
Yeah, people try to pretend like they didn't think that that was cool as fuck when they were
Right.
like 16 and saw that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's still cool. Like you can enjoy it now unironically. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's like this movie obviously loved Equilibrium and was like, yeah, we're just gonna have Chris Redfield gun kata fighting this guy. It's gonna be sick.
And
And they
actually,
do it really well. I mean, like the way that the way you think, like it puts you on edge because you actually do see them because of the animation. Like you see them just missing each other, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they just move their heads in such a way to they're both deaf by the end of the fight, but
yeah, yeah.
you know,
yeah, which is why I don't get why Chris is covering his ears in the shooting range in Death Island, but
you're
that's
like,
not a
dude.
What's hilarious about that is that he just like doesn't later in the scene.
later on. Yeah,
Like she's
yeah,
still shooting, and he's just like, whatever, fuck it. I'm already deaf anyway. Why I'm just
yeah.
like pretending that I can hear it.
uh Death Island or no, Vendetta. Uh yeah, and that's another thing when people complain about the people who don't fuck with John Wick, who don't get the, just the beauty of seeing people basically dance with each other but also kill each other. Um this is actually more believable because they're zombies, they're moving slower. It's like that is tense. Like they're right there. They could bite you, but also I can see why they wouldn't just all be, dogpiling on you. Like they're moving too slow for for that to happen. But man,
It
I want to
makes you
watch that
think
fight
that
scene again.
yeah, I'm gonna go watch it again later. It makes you think, and this is like a cool in-universe thing that I don't think they mention in this, but it's like implied that like Chris and Leon and all these people have basically developed a set of like CQC techniques that are specifically meant for like fighting the undead. Which is like, I mean, obviously that's what would happen in this world. They've encountered them all the time, over and over again. So like eventually, yeah, I like that idea that you have this whole set of like sort of like martial arts techniques that are specifically like focused around like fighting zombies.
Well, yeah, because there was a point where Leon, like in that hallway fight, they do so much shit that I've never seen and never thought about in relation to fighting zombies.
Mhm.
Whereas like Leon's getting up in their grill as if
Yeah.
they can't bite him and infect him. But
Mhm.
it's like he's like getting up and shoving his elbow like into
Mhm.
their throat and shit, like closing their jaw to where they can't bite while he fights
Yeah.
and like shoots another one in the face. And then he comes
Yeah.
back to that. Like, yeah, it is all this zombie centric CQC specifically tailored to fighting
Yeah.
people who can bite and infect you.
And it's cool because like obviously like a lot of thought went into that from the director and like the team that made this. Like somebody sat down and was like, okay, well, let's if you really had to fight zombies and you'd been fighting zombies for almost 2 decades at this point, like how would you fight them in like the most efficient like manner using like small arms and stuff? And it's like I don't know, I love that. I love that like somebody obviously thought long and hard about that, and that is why that scene is like so cool.
What else about Vendetta? I didn't get the Chris and Leon bromance vibes as much in Vendetta as everybody seems to. They're like, just make out already. Like, I don't know if they're there yet. They got
Yeah.
close, but
Well, I mean, the only reason Chris likes Leon is because he wants him to impregnate Claire. That's the real reason. That's the actual canon. Um, but yeah, I mean, I get the impression, yeah, that they don't really like each other very much, but it never really explains why. I mean, that's what's funny is that because it doesn't explain why, I have to assume it's because Leon won't fuck Claire, and
But she's not
Chris is
Asian.
just eternally pissed about it.
she's not Asian, bro.
Yeah, she's not, even if Chris, says that he'll make her wear a Chinese dress and say Chinese words to him, he still won't do it. No thanks, bro.
What if I tape her eyelid?
Leon, the menopause is setting in. She has 3 cats, and one of them is named Albert Whiskers.
Oh man, there's a lot of stuff that I liked about it. I thought that in Vendetta the acting was actually pretty good. Like I thought that the voice actor for Rebecca was great.
Yeah.
Where her coworker brings her the coffee and she was like, "Did you add in the chocolate chips?"
Did you add in the chocolate chips? I know, I was watching that with Erica, and she was like, "What the fuck?"
Oh, this is a movie, by the way, that your wife or like just random people cannot walk in on you watching this because they're like, "What are you watching?"
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, it's a CGI Resident Evil movie," and then they're just like, "Gay!" Like Rios just like walked out of the room. She's like, "Gay!"
Yeah, if you don't already have a wife, please do not like let your girlfriend know that you're watching this movie.
Yeah, this
Or
is
let
not
anyone
a first date movie.
know.
You're like,
Absolutely not.
"Do you want
This
to
is the
watch
kind of
Resident
movie that
Evil
yeah,
Vendetta?"
like no female ever needs to know that you watch this.
No, no. And if she does, wife her up because she'll go balls to chin for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like the voice acting is actually, I mean, we talked about like how the CG quality increased a lot, like as these installments have went on. But I think the voice acting too has gotten a lot better because that was one of my sort of complaints about Degeneration or criticisms of it was that the voice acting was kind of shitty. Like I remember the senator guy sounded awful. I mean, he just sounded
These
like a
damn
video game
agitators.
guy. Yeah, it was like very much like they probably just got the same guys who do the voice for like Capcom games, right? Because it sounded like a Capcom game cast, like voice acting style. It was like video game quality, not feature length animated feature quality. But as these have went on, they've gotten a lot better. And like Vendetta, I think you're on the money there. Like this probably has like the best voice acting to date of any of them.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts before we move on to the big pile of shit that is Infinite Darkness?
No. We got to get into Death Island.
Nope. Backwards. Infinite Darkness comes next.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, Death Island's the most recent thing. It's Infinite.
The way that movies come out is not in the order that you watch them.
Okay. I just watched this. Y'all see this joint that just dropped called Citizen Kane?
This shit's crazy.
This is new movie. This is new movie. It just started streaming.
I love the idea. Yeah, of every movie that you watch is like the newest movie. Like, dude, have y'all seen Scream? This shit is changing the game in the slasher
I saw this
film.
anime called Steamboat Willie.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy. And it's great. and it has biblically accurate black people in it. It's so cool.
Biblically accurate. Oh.
So yeah, ID. I'll save my rant for
Well,
later.
I feel even better that this. So I like that Infinite Darkness came out first. That's cool. That's good. They're on top then. They redeemed themselves.
Absolutely.
Infinite Darkness is a snooze fest.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It has moments. Like I think the rat sequence in the submarine is like a pretty good sequence.
It's cool.
It could have been
cool.
longer. It could have been better.
Yeah.
But like that's probably like the crown jewel of the show. Like that's like the most tense. I don't. It sucks. It's like that could have been longer and it could have been more tense. But it's like it just kind of comes and goes because that's like a scary situation. You're like trapped on a submarine that's about to self-destruct with a ton of like zombified rats who are moving like this one big creature swarm. Like that's a good setup for like a cool sequence. And it, but then he just like does the video gamey thing where he like makes an electrified puddle on the ground of water and it just kills all of them. It's like, oh.
Yeah, dude, a submarine full of zombified rats, similar to Degeneration, where you thought like, oh, the airport, that'll be the whole movie. I thought that for Infinite Darkness. I thought they were going to be on that sub.
Yeah, it's a really wasted opportunity because like I was just thinking like the sub is like a good setting just for like just that, right? I mean like I understand like Infinite Darkness is like a 4-episode like mini series, whatever, so the episodes aren't feature length, but like zombies on a submarine is a pretty good idea, right? Because you can't like it gets glossed over really quick, but the one Call of Duty character guy is like we're in a pressurized tube underwater. You can't use guns because Leon is a moron and immediately like picks up his gun, like ready to kill stuff. So I'm like, that is interesting. That puts limitations on our protagonists, right? They can't use firearms. They can only do hand-to-hand combat. Like, you could do cool stuff with that. Like, what if it was sort of like Death Island, where everybody on the submarine was infected with the T virus, but it was like a delayed thing, right? So then you didn't know who was going to be next, who was going to turn into a zombie next, right? Like you could set up like a whole cool like horror setup with that, but it just gets wasted. Like a lot of stuff in Infinite Darkness, it's just like good ideas that just are executed kind of shittily.
Yeah, and like the Black Hawk Down scenario in the beginning was like, I was thinking, okay, you can have your geopolitical shit as like an aesthetic backdrop. Like we see, oh, there's these soldiers that get gunned down and now they're torn apart and strung up on this giant hand statue, and you can just have a good zombie movie with that shit as like, you know, aesthetic, yeah, backdrop.
Or just in that setting. Yeah, like you've got these American service members who are trapped in this like hostile enemy location. I mean, you literally just Black Hawk Down it, right? Send Leon in to like rescue them because he's the only one who has like experience fighting BOWs, right? Like in all the other movies, they send him in as sort of like a special agent, right? Just send him in to like rescue the troops. And then you find out there's this big conspiracy and they all were like infected or whatever. But you can have it all in that same location. You don't have to move it to this globe trotting thing. Like
right.
Yeah.
Right. Unless the globe trotting is going to be you're in well, you know, it's really funny. That's the big criticism of RE6 is that it goes to all these different locations on the globe, but you never get into it. And I wonder if that's not a part of the RE, like a successful RE entry in the franchise is sticking to a particular location, like Raccoon City or the mansion or the RE4 does it really well, right? Like the town, the village, whatever. It's not a Mission Impossible franchise. Like you can't hop around. It's like RE might be a series that you have to have like, okay, this one's the airport one.
Yeah.
This one is the sub one. This one is the Afghanistan one. And you create your stories around that. Yeah. But if you hop around too much, like you're leaving these great locations and sinking into those locations and finding notes and seeing what's left over. And Because Resident Evil has this great thing of everything being abandoned, but also like glossy and kind of pristine in its own way. Like when things are broken down, they're still beautiful. And so I think that aesthetic of decay needs at least an hour and a half to cook. And you can't make a movie happen if you are constantly jumping.
It misses that the environments in Resident Evil, like you mentioned, like the settings are as much a character as the actual characters, right? Like the mansion is a character in Resident Evil. Like,
totally. Yeah.
People will never forget the mansion from the original Resident Evil. All the weird puzzles and everything. Like
the police station.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that's what Resident Evil's really good at. And when you take that out, it's just kind of like a generic action horror movie that doesn't quite know what it wants to be, because it's not really horror, it's not really action. It kind of doesn't, like Infinite Darkness more than any of these movies, I think, just like really doesn't feel like it knows what it's trying to do, like what it wants to be.
And we get a little boy in Infinite Darkness, going back to the tropes. And it's like, did that work? No. He's mute, don't care. He draws exactly the scene that we see in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's like he drew the. What are you drawing there?
Right.
The opening shot of the movie. That's crazy.
Yeah, the kid who's hiding behind the grate in the rubble or whatever.
Yeah,
that's never followed up on, which I kind of, to be honest, feel.
Right?
I think it's charming though. It is charming to just like have these tropes, and kind of do nothing with them. They're just like, oh, this is what you do in American movies.
It feels like, especially even like the opening and stuff, like, I don't know, maybe this came out at a time when like Call of Duty was like really big, but I kept getting that vibe off of it. Like every character in this, they didn't feel like Resident Evil characters. They felt like a character that was in like Black Ops 2 or something.
Right.
And especially the main Jason, the guy who turns into the tyrant at the end. Like, you know, he just looks
great voice actor. Great voice actor though.
Yeah, he did a great job.
Yeah, he reminded me of who's the guy from Highlander? Clancy Brown. He reminded me of Clancy Brown. And I thought ID was going to be awesome when Leon and Jason have their standoff in the apartment and Leon shoots him in the heart. That was a badass scene.
That was like,
okay, cool. Like, I didn't expect that. Shoots the dude in the heart. Like, he has the cigarette, and the cigarette keeps going down to the table that's full of guns. And you're like, who's going to pull first? I thought that was really effective and good. But the movie did not turn out to be that at all.
I still don't know what the fuck was going on with the ending. Because I just most recently watched this. I watched the rest of it today before this. And so it's like fresh in my mind. And it was like, what was Leon's problem with, like, Jason wasn't a monster. I mean, he was all like, you know, he went all like crazy tyrant, right? But he still obviously like could control himself. Like he could speak normally. He seemed like he still had the ability to think normally. And he was like, he didn't even say he wanted to kill anyone. He's like, I just want them to see me. I just want to be like on TV, right? To let everyone know what they were doing to us. And what is Leon's fucking problem? Like, why does Leon try so hard to stop him? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Right. Japanese video games do this all the time. So Kojima does this all the time. And I think of even games like Dark Souls, where you're actually the bad guy. Or like Sekiro, where you actually destroy like a village that's fighting to preserve its independence. Leon's not the good guy here.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like American movies with like Ethan Hunt or James, or British, but James Bond, you get this idea that they're like still kind of good guys and they push back. Leon is actually kind of just a company man.
Yeah.
He's just Leon's whole thing is like, I get a mission, I do the mission, and that's it. And sometimes that happens to overlap with helping my friends. But unlike Claire and Chris and Jill, like Leon's like, hey, if they pointed me in your direction, that's it. Like, I gotta take you out. Like, I'm gonna do that thing.
That would actually be really interesting if they make any more of these. That would be an interesting way to take it, right? Like
Mhm.
Leon just becomes so straight up like antagonist one of the movies,
He is
right?
he is kind of the antagonist. Yeah, he is. Yeah. He's sort of an antagonist.
That is, I like that Dark Souls way of looking at it. Yeah, he's and when he does things his way, it's not for some kind of like moral code, like, no, I'm doing this my way. It's like he's doing it his way because he wants to continue, you know, propagating the the whatever. This kid threw me off track when he ran by
No,
me
but you're no,
screaming
no,
about something.
I know what you mean. And it's that Leon is and I think this is like the actual darkest thing that Infinite Darkness does is that ending where Claire says, "Give me the chip and I'll show the world this," and Leon says no.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe that there are ways of doing this other than fighting every time something goes wrong. But also that's probably just who he sees him as. But then you have like I would say somebody like Chris or Jill, if they could stop it permanently, they would. I don't think Leon would. I think Leon gets off on it.
Yeah, it's an interesting. It's I never really thought about this, but you're totally right on this point, and I feel like that's another like kind of wasted potential thing because this is like never really explored with Leon. Like Leon obviously has like trauma from Raccoon City, right? Like he's
Mm-hmm.
still sort of
Mm-hmm.
haunted by it, and he's dealing with that in his own way. And like Jill and Chris and everybody else is kind of like dealing with their trauma in their own way. But I don't know, like it never the games and the movies never really give Leon a chance to explain this because he's always just like doing one-liners and doing action hero shit. Like it never slows down at all to be like, okay, what is his deal actually? Like, why is he like this? What has happened to him over the course of these like 20 years that this like chronology takes place? Like, I don't know. It's kind of disappointing that that hasn't really ever been explored because it's just in lieu of woohoo wacky action guy.
Hire us for RE9. We're your writers. We can tie
So
in Biohazard. We can tie it all in.
Yep.
We can make this all work.
the way you make him a straight up antagonist is you have the world actually pretty chill and everybody's like, cool, we're recovering. How you doing?
Mhm.
Claire gets pregnant by somebody who looks like Leon, and Leon is over
His name is
here.
Dion.
Dion, Dion, he's black. He's the black Leon, and Chris is like, I guess it's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and then Leon is in his feelings about it, having nothing to do. It's just a fucking wreck. And he's killing 2/5 of Everclear a day.
Ooh.
And then he's the one who unleashes the next bioweapon.
Yeah.
He unleashes the next T virus because it's the only purpose that he ever had.
Honestly, I kind of feel like Leon should have been the villain of Death Island. Like the guy in Death Island who's the villain is
Mm-hmm.
basically just Leon, but not Leon, right? He's another
Yeah.
guy who survived Raccoon City who was like a company man and everything. And he's like just all kind of like fucked up and has like PTSD and stuff and is doing all this stuff out of that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
really,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, if you wanted Death Island to be a much better movie, but that's the thing, though, the fans would have hated it. Like, you couldn't do anything
Yeah,
like
that's the
that,
problem.
that
That's the problem.
extreme, right?
Capcom would have never greenlit that. They would
Yeah,
have never let you do that, and fans would have hated it. But it is the clear,
yeah,
smart, artistic choice is to like, and you could even imagine Leon who with all of his like badassery, but now he's like a Russian roulette playing trench coat wearing Kane guy.
yeah.
I could
He's got
see
like
Leon as a
Coopers and
Kane
shit.
guy. Yeah.
He's got the DTs.
And I feel like it would work so well because the best movies and games have the best villains, and you have 20 years of lore for your
Yeah.
villain, like right there. You couldn't fuck it up. If you fucked it up, somebody would kill you. But if you made him a really solid villain, he could
Mhm.
be the best villain of all time. And then how that would color the other, like you're playing RE2, RE4, 6, and eventually, like
This guy's
this is
gonna
gonna be
Darth Vader.
he's big boss, right? Like Leon is
Yeah,
big boss. Uh
yeah.
man.
It's actually a Capcom. Like now that I think about it from that point of view, this isn't like a new thing for Capcom because that's
Mhm.
like Final Fight lore, right? Like real nerd shit, like Street Fighter canon. Um, in Final Fight, the old like arcade like side scrolling beat 'em up, one of the main characters has got Cody, who's just like blonde hair, blue eyed. You know, it's like his girlfriend's the one got kidnapped, so he's got to beat up the Mad Gear gang to get his girlfriend back. Um, but in universe, after the end of Final Fight, when he like saves his girlfriend and saves the city from the Mad Gear gang, like he just keeps beating up random like crooks and stuff and like gang members. Like he just can't stop fighting because it's like he's not a hero. He just enjoys beating the shit out of people. And he ends up eventually getting arrested, thrown in jail, and then in Street Fighter Alpha 3, he like gets bored, so he just breaks out of jail. He just punches the wall open and walks right out. Um, but that's like so this isn't a completely new thing for Capcom. It just feels like no one's willing to like commit to that. No one's willing
Mhm.
to commit to that bid of just like make Leon the villain. Like he's
Yeah.
obviously on that trajectory. Like that's where it needs to go.
And you have to have a badass. Like the only way that you're gonna take Leon out is you have to either have this really long badass Chris versus Leon fight scene.
Yeah.
Totally, dude. That's it.
Leon, no, Chris has got to be the one to kill him. It's got to
Yeah.
Yeah.
be Chris. Like
Yeah.
Leon versus Chris. That's like, yeah,
The whole series is moving towards this apex of a Chris v. Leon 30-minute battle.
yeah.
Dude, this has to happen. It has
You
to.
can. There's even like Resident Evil 4 stuff that you could tie into this, like where Leon, because somebody was making a joke about Leon's two things are Asian women and American Special Forces operators with like facial scars. Because
Mhm.
like he has the whole thing with Krauser in
Yeah.
RE2,
Right.
and like Krauser's whole thing is I was like fucked over by the government
Mhm.
and him and Leon's only big ideological difference is that Krauser was willing to become like a BOW in order to like gain power and stuff, and Leon's like, no, I'm going to remain human. I'm not going to use power like that. But he still ends up killing him in the end.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, you could even tie it into like a Krauser throwback kind of thing where he ends up becoming like sort of like what Krauser was doing and or Krauser was doing in RE4. Man, you could
Mhm.
even like too. You could have it be like a slow reveal, like the next Resident Evil game. You know, like you don't know who the villain is, and it's like sort of in the and
Right.
then all of a sudden you have a reveal that it's Leon Kennedy.
Dude,
Like that would be
how
so
sick would that be? Dude, you could call it Resident Evil Betrayal.
yeah,
Yo.
Yeah.
man, yeah. They'll
We
never
shouldn't
do
put
it.
this podcast out anymore
I know.
because we actually discovered what the next best game would be.
Well,
But
we put it out and then when they steal it because it's genius, we just sue them and
so you got that from Agitator episode 115.
yep, dated October 26th, 2023.
I just imagine like that ink ribbon guy making like a listening to this and making like a YouTube like lore speculation. Like I like see the YouTube
Yeah.
thumbnail, like the
Yeah.
true villain of Resident Evil or something like that. You won't believe who the true villain.
Oh, Ink Ribbon, if you do that, I'll fucking cut your dick off, dude.
Yeah, if you don't link to this show, we're gonna find where you live.
Kelby really will. He really
Yep.
will.
Oh no, see, so plot wise, what's got to happen is it's Leon versus Chris, but Leon kills Chris, and then Claire has to kill Leon. Like Claire is who actually like the final thing is.
I like this idea. So where is Jill in all of this? Where's Tigo Jill?
Uh, hmm. I was gonna say Leon brainwashes her Wesker style again. She just gets
Yeah.
brainwashed again.
Again, yeah,
That
yeah.
would
She
almost
just
be
keeps
like
getting
too goofy.
brainwashed.
I don't think
I
Leon
I
would.
I love a good like dumb bitch who just keeps getting brainwashed. I like that for her.
Imagine though, like how that could set up a great Jill centric sequel to that too. After
Yeah.
Leon's dead, we have a Jill, like a heavily Jill focused, where she's like, I was brainwashed fucking twice,
Yeah.
twice. Like,
It's just like 30 minutes of her staring in a mirror. Like who am I? It all takes place in the mirror. Um, yeah, no, we'd have to figure out where everybody's character loyalties lie. Because I don't think everybody would immediately turn against Leon, right? If you gave him good enough motivations, you could have like a Leon, Jill, V, Claire, and Chris, or some variation of that.
Yeah.
Rebecca could go one side, or Rebecca could be the hero of the whole thing. She could be the one who like, why are we all fighting?
Yeah.
Like we're all supposed to be friends. But yeah, so we just invented Resident Evil 10 or 11.
Yeah.
What do we think about Death Island? Because I think if Vendetta didn't exist, Death Island would be the best one for sure.
I would still rank Damnation above Death Island if only for that final
Ooh.
sequence with the tyrants. Like
Interesting. Okay.
that part is really good. But Death Island, I do like Death Island because Death Island fixes
one location.
Yeah, one location. It fixes a lot of shit that we've been like criticizing some of these movies for. Like Death Island all takes place on Alcatraz for the most part. There's a few earlier scenes, whatever, but the big set piece is Alcatraz and it stays there. So it kind of fixes that problem. Um, it's smaller scale, right? Like you've got a decent villain, but some of the action sequences kind of suck. They're like the action choreography is not nearly as good as in Vendetta.
No. They
And
try.
they try. Like I thought the fight with what is it, Maria Gomez, the like
Mhm.
Dead or Alive fighting game character girl, who I completely forgot from Vendetta. Like I remember I was watching Death Island and I was like, who is this woman? Like, is she in one of the games? And I'm just like not remembering who she was. And I was like, wait a second.
Dude.
Oh, she was in Vendetta.
When she punched, I will say though, when she punched Leon through like 3 plates of glass, like in John Wick 3,
Yeah.
I was like, damn, I wish that was me.
That scene is a little
out. Like she just went out too easy. She just gets like stuck once and it's done. And it's like,
yeah,
well,
yeah. It should have
turn
been
into a
better
monster
for
or
sure.
something.
Yeah, because like he even his kick that he gives her to send her into that splintered piece of wood is like kind of half-assed. I thought the fight was going to go on for another 30 seconds or so. Like I thought that was like his opening salvo for like the badass Kamehameha that he was going to do to kill her. And then she was like, oh, this wood.
I like assumed that she was like also a BOW or enhanced or something like Wesker because of how she was doing all this other crazy Metal Gear stuff.
And her dad, her dad's
dad and everything. So like I assumed like she was gonna get back up or she was gonna like pull herself off of it and mutate.
I thought so like too. Yeah, I thought she was gonna come out of that and he was gonna be like, oh, thank God I killed her. And then like her tits turn into eyeballs or something. And then it's on.
I thought the villain was like a little bit of like the Russian roulette thing was kind of like, I don't know. I mean, it was cool, but it was also kind of corny too. I was kind of like, eh. Like
I liked how corny it was. I really liked the Russian roulette stuff. I thought I liked his backstory.
Yeah, his backstory stuff was really cool. I did like
it. It should have been Leon. But yeah, him as like a young, a green SWAT guy in Raccoon City who witnessed, like so he had to smash his friend's head in. He didn't have to smash his friend's head in that many times.
Yeah. They made me overkill my friend.
That whole
they made me eat his balls. It's like, no, they didn't. What are you talking about?
That's on you, man. That whole little segment of like the kind of flashbacks to Raccoon City and this like Umbrella Strike team and stuff, I wish that had been expanded on a little bit. Like that was actually
Yeah.
pretty cool shit to see. Like I like that it was like calling back to it and you were seeing something else happening. Like I don't know, you could have. I was like kind of hoping that like Hunk would make an appearance during that little
Yeah, that would have been
segment. Like that would have
sick.
been
Yeah.
even because okay, so like when I was talking about Death Island earlier, I said it was like the Avengers of Resident Evil movies because it's like
Mhm.
everyone's here, all of the characters that you love, they're all in the same movie, even though like doesn't necessarily have to make sense, but they're all here, which
Yeah.
is a selling point. Like I was happy to watch a movie with Jill in it because none of these movies have had Jill so far, so it was cool to see her. Um,
Hmm.
but like I don't know, it's like it focused on a lot of stuff that wasn't that interesting and didn't spend enough time with the stuff that really was interesting, at least to me.
Well, there was one thing, or two things, I should say, that were interesting to me in Death Island and that I definitely appreciated. I feel like I spent most of this movie hypnotized by the CGI boobs. I thought they were great. What if at the beginning of the movie, right? Like, um, we're introduced to this bad guy and his friend, and they're kind of talking like, "Hey, you want to get pizza after this?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." They go to the station, people get infected, they get the call that they have to kill anyone who's infected.
Mm-hmm.
His buddy gets bitten, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have this standoff where he's going to kill the guy, but then his ammo's out. That's where the Russian roulette thing comes from, right? His buddy tackles him and his buddy's killing him, right? He doesn't get the upper hand.
Mm-hmm.
His buddy's about to kill him, and then the door opens and Tofu walks out. we,
Hell
we
yeah.
we get Tofu in Death Island. That would really make it an Avengers movie. Nobody's been bold enough to put Hunk or Tofu in their movie.
I would love to have just like a Hunk movie, like
Mm-hmm.
just focused on him.
Hunk and Tofu, just call it Hunk and Tofu.
Maybe not Tofu, but just Hunk. Like just a Hunk centric movie. Because like I feel like the only other Hunk centric piece of media there's been has been that 4-player co-op cover shooter thing,
Mm-hmm.
Umbrella City Chronicles or something like that. It was like
Umbrella Chronicles, yeah.
Umbrella
Yeah.
Chronicles, yeah. Um, and it's like, I don't know, it kind of wasn't great, but I would love to see like I don't know, but it might also be one of those things where it's like Hunk is good because you only see him in small bursts, right? He's always like in a little side thing or like a mini game or something. Maybe if it was like a whole thing built around him, it would get kind of old.
Maybe
I don't know.
it, unless you made him very enigmatic. Like if you made
Yeah.
Hunk like very idiosyncratic, and he
Mhm.
was like a guy who had to have his 4 o'clock tea,
Yeah.
and it didn't matter what was happening. Like Hunk had to, if you made him weird and kind of me gay ish, you could have a
Mhm.
whole Hunk story. I think
Mhm.
he's not interesting enough as just like a badass SWAT dude
Yeah.
who's always masked up. You never see him. Like you'd have to give him something. Like it would be funny in like Way of the House husband type shit. You know what I mean? Where like he's a domesticated mama's boy or something who gets
Yeah.
sent out and is just really good at killing.
He's actually got
You'd
like a
have
big
to
like I love mom like tattoo in his arm.
Yes, exactly, exactly, exactly. Or he has to watch his stories or something like that.
Yeah.
Like Raccoon City is going to be nuked in 30 minutes, and he's like, "Fuck!" But Days of Our Lives comes on in 15 minutes. Like, how do I make this schedule work? That's how you make that character interesting. Otherwise, he's just, you know,
Yeah.
awesome.
So we're doing all this shit that has some people probably screaming uh and cursing us and hoping this never happens. What how would you rank, because we're all Resident Evil fans, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the Resident Evil fan base like? I feel like Leon is antagonist. To me, that is genius
Mhm.
to the point of being a no-brainer, obvious direction that it's going in,
Yeah.
that it probably won't, and that a lot of people would fucking hate. But what? Like, so what's the line there? What is the difference between like how are we such good fans that we can accept greatness and everybody else wants Leon to just be no, no, he's the pretty boy. He's the good guy.
I think some people just want like the same shit over and over again, forever. And I don't mind things taking chances and doing something kind of extreme and changing things around, especially once it starts to become like kind of stale, right? Like that's the reason Resident Evil 4 was like one of the most important video games ever made, right? Like it took a series that was really starting to just like get real stale and completely reinvented it. Completely invented an entire new genre of action game, right? Like incredibly influential, like moving forward. And it took a ton of like chances, right? Like it took a game series that was considered classic even when RE4 came out, right? It was considered like one of the best game series of all time. And RE4 really like went for it. And that doesn't always work. Sometimes when you really go for it, you miss, but at least you took the chance. And but I feel like most people aren't like willing to accept that risk, of like really just like going forward, trying something radically different. I think that's why people wouldn't accept it. They wouldn't want it. Or if they did it, it would be like, oh, it's actually like a clone of Leon or something. Like in the end, like the real Leon's fine or something like that. Yeah. Oh no, I'm just not Claire has to kill Leon. Ada Wong has to kill Leon.
Absolutely. Ada Wong. Yeah, it's Ada
Yep.
Wong. It's
Yep.
always been Ada
Yep.
Wong.
And
Yeah.
he accepts it. He embraces it.
He
He's
allows
got to
her.
be he's got to be
It's like
trapped
the
in
end of
an
the Fly.
incinerator.
It's like the end of the Fly when Jeff Goldblum's like, "Kill me" or whatever. Like Leon's all mutated and he's like, "Kill me," and like Ada has to kill him.
She has to stomp his face with her high heel.
Yep. He can die happy finally.
He just busts. And he's got a huge old tyrant hog that just like
Yeah.
blows.
He's got like a dick
slop
with an
everywhere.
eyeball in it for some reason.
Yeah, it's got an eyeball. Yeah, exactly.
I feel like with all the IP obsession, this has to be like, please start taking shit in this direction. Like, not even to savage, not even like, fuck all this, nostalgia obsession. Like, not even as sabotage, just as get ballsy. Like, like, if we're gonna just keep going and going and going with all this different franchise shit, then like, get ballsy, go in a new direction.
Yeah, I mean that would be interesting. I mean, like there hasn't. I think the last time anything like that was tried was probably Resident Evil 7, like the first person one, which a lot of people liked. I never really played it. It didn't really interest me that much. I know people who really liked it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just not like the kind of game I want to play. But that was pretty bold to move in that direction.
I started it. It's good. It's really good. It is good.
I watched like a playthrough of it, and it looks cool, but
yeah, it's kind
like
of not like
Evil. I think it really like misses some stuff.
Right, exactly. I agree with you 100%. It's like you can see the jump from RE2 and 3 to 4.
Yeah.
And then when you get to 7, you're kind of like, And I think it has to do with the story, like the idea of going with like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre style story.
Yeah.
I think doesn't quite fit. Like, needs a big Nihei superstructure in there somewhere.
Exactly, yeah. And I think like unfortunately the money is in the remake stuff right now because it plays to the nostalgia aspect. Like and I don't hate the remakes. Like RE2 remake is great. The RE3 remake is whatever, but
I'm playing it right now and it tells me that I'm 20% through and I've only played it for like 2 hours.
What, the RE3 one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard it's like it's bizarrely short. Kind of feels like half-assed.
Yeah.
But the RE4 remake's fucking great. I played a shitload of that. I did like a knife and like handgun only run. Like I played a ton of the RE4 remake. Absolutely loved it. And RE4 was not a game that needed a remake. You know,
No.
RE4 is one of the best games of all time. It didn't need a
Yeah.
remake, but like, you know, it turned out really well. So they're doing really well with the remakes. They're financially successful. I think like RE4 remake is one of the most like one of the biggest games for Capcom in a while. Not since like probably like Monster Hunter World or something. But I just like they're locking themselves into just making remakes of games they've already made. And I mean, are we going to get like an RE6 remake? I mean, the RE4 remake kind of like sets up an RE5 remake, which will be extremely interesting if it happens, because I do not know how in the current political environment you could do RE5 again.
Bro, it was problematic when it came
I
out.
know, yeah.
I was like, and I remember just playing it thinking, cool, we're in Africa and this is fun. And I thought it was a masterpiece. Like I was so
Yeah.
Me
hyped on
too.
it.
I did too. Yeah.
And then the reviews started rolling in. And I think initially the reviews were pretty like like pretty positive from what I can remember. But at a certain point, I was reading shit and going, oh, people are mad that you're shooting a bunch of black people. We're here in Africa. I don't know. I'm sorry we're not in the colonial part of Africa. Like
I didn't, okay, so it didn't really bother me because, yeah, it's like, okay, well, it's set there. I think the only part that I remember when I was playing it back in the day and I was kind of like, that's kind of a little much, was eventually you end up running into like tribal black people who have like spooky masks on and are kind of like ooga booga character like
You mean
and I was like, okay,
biblically
maybe
accurate
that's a
ones?
bit much. Like,
biblically, yeah, the biblically
yeah.
accurate one.
Like maybe but then also too, it's like if you watch Japanese stuff, you know that like they're not coming at it from this racist point of view.
No,
They
no.
just don't fucking care. Like
They just
don't.
look at shit and they're like, "Hey, that's cool." So just the
Mhm.
Yeah.
same way that they watch some spy movies and go, "All right, here's Solid Snake. We've kind of watched a few
Right,
American action movies and now we
right.
know what's up with special ops." They're like, "Yeah, we know Africa, Ooga Booga, tribes and shit. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
All right, we got
Yeah,
it."
yeah. There's no malice. There's no malice there at all. You know,
Mm-mm.
they don't like you, or they don't like black people, but they don't like white people either.
They don't
Yeah.
like
It's
anybody.
just they
Japanese
don't
are
like anybody.
nationalist as shit.
Yeah, it's like one of the most nationalist countries I could think of off the top of my head. So it's
Which is
like
fine. It's
it's
like, what do you
it's
do with
nothing
Nazis? Put
personal.
them on an island. We did. It's called
Yeah.
Japan, and we
Yeah.
love it.
And it turns out they make really cool shit and they have crazy interpretations of white Americans and black tribe people. And I don't know. I feel like it's just a utopia paradise of being able to be racist.
And we can't
The final
move
place on the
there.
planet where you can be racist.
You just gotta respect it because I'm not Japanese. I'm never gonna
Mhm.
be Japanese. You're just like, yeah, cool, respect. I like your shit. Keep
Mhm.
making it.
Yeah. Like if they made a Kelby character, he would just be JD from Damnation.
Yeah, they made
They'd
a
be like,
Kelby character, and that's why Damnation is the best one.
yeah.
Yeah. They made me in Vendetta like the nerd ass, or maybe it was in Death Island. It was like the nerd ass guy who brought Rebecca Chambers her
Rebecca
coffee.
the
Yeah.
coffee.
Yeah.
Like that's
Who
me.
gets like
He was
who gets
just
like
like really horny for Rebecca and then immediately gets killed.
immediately gets sodomized by a zombie. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, if I was an RE character, who would I be?
You be Chris and Leon's baby.
Oh, I like that. I like that. I'd be jacked as fuck. Just come out with a huge ass head, fucking heart beating way too fast. That should be tight.
Actually, I see you'd probably be like an Ethan Winters guy because you're like
I could be Ethan Winters, yeah.
you're a big white wife guy, so I could definitely see
Mhm.
Chris Redfield like domed your wife. You get really mad.
Yeah, yeah. I'd be Ethan Winters. I'd fuck with that. Yeah, for sure. Except I'd win because I always win. Uh, so Death Island, we kind of glossed over it. There's some cool stuff in there. They go to Alcatraz. There's a bad guy who plays Russian roulette.
Chris
There
Redfield
are,
has a great outfit.
yeah, he's got like a Hawaiian shirt that
Oh
he
yeah,
immediately takes off once the action starts. He's like, I got to lose this shit.
I
Uh,
I literally like cracked up out loud when I saw Chris in the Hawaiian shirt. Like it killed me.
in the fucking Tommy Bahama shirt, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
somebody knew how funny that was, and that I appreciate that.
yeah. And then the bad guy has mosquitoes that can make you zombies.
That was
A bit
terrifying
a
because
big go ahead.
no, I mean we have, crazy mosquitoes around here. So just the thought
Mhm.
of that, like, here's how the outbreak happens. Mosquitoes. It's like, oh shit, everybody's fucked.
The thing that I hated about Death Island, and I really wish they had done because they had a vaccine. I really thought they were going to be, and this is why they'll never do our like Leon bad guy thing. I thought they were going to turn all the characters except for Jill into zombies. And then,
Mm.
of course, have them vaccinated and turned back.
Yeah,
But
like for
I thought that was going to be a thing where we were going to see like zombie Claire and Chris and Leon, and
Mhm.
just didn't happen. So I was really bummed. Like they get the vaccine just in time because
You know,
whatever. I don't know. But
You know
the
where
ending
else
fight was
they
super
should
tight.
go that they
Hmm.
won't? They definitely won't. This would be a agitator fan made Resident Evil. The vaccine is what turns everybody into
Let's go
bioweapons.
rare candy style, rare candy vaccine based. Uh, that's what I was actually always kind of hoping for, and I'd always remembered RE as being based on pharmaceutical companies. But when I watched Degeneration and then the movies that followed, I was like, oh, but they still think there's like a way to science your way out of a pandemic like that, and that's where I hop off the train. Like,
Well, and
but
you
you
have
no,
know,
to because you got to have the sequels. Like you got to
yeah,
you got to
sure.
save the day somehow. And how do you do that besides unzombify somebody
It's
with?
a
for all that we
vaccine.
talk shit about Infinite Darkness, that kind of it was kind of based in that like the what is he like the Secretary of War or whatever Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
His whole plan is to scare everybody with the threat of the T virus, but he's
Yeah,
also like selling this inhibitor, like vaccine. They don't call it a vaccine; they call it like an inhibitor or whatever. But it's basically like keeps you from turning into a
Yeah.
zombie. But it doesn't like vaccinate you; it just keeps you from turning into a zombie for a little while, and you got to take like a constant supply.
that's true.
Of stuff.
It is based, but they
Yeah.
can't say that the vaccines are fake. They have to invent a new word.
Yeah,
It's an
Inhibitor.
inhibitor.
it's an inhibitor. Yeah, but it's the same
Yeah.
idea. It's like he's going to create a virus, and he's going to create the solution to the virus, and then force everyone to take it.
Huh, that sounds really familiar.
Damn, it's almost like art imitates life.
What are your
Right, yeah.
power rankings for the movies?
In terms of like which ones to just ranking in from best to worst. Okay, like Vendetta is my favorite for sure. I think like Vendetta, Damnation, Death Island, Infinite Darkness, and then Degeneration. I think Degeneration is my least favorite. And I think it's just because of like what I said about earlier that I feel like it's got a lot of potential that was like squandered, and I hate that.
Fair enough. Kelby?
So I'd go hallway scene in Vendetta, Damnation, rest of Vendetta, Death Island, Degeneration, Infinite Darkness.
Yep, same ranking for me, except without the caveat of the hallway scene. For me, it's Vendetta, Death Island, uh, Damnation, Degeneration, Infinite Darkness. I hated Infinite Darkness.
And
We
there's
don't
just
really
like
do big negativity on this show, so like I haven't talked about how much I hated that movie, but it sucks. It stinks.
It
It's the
does suck.
worst one.
Yeah.
there's parts like what you mentioned that make we're making it sound cooler than it is and that's
Mhm.
part of why I hate it because there is that like wasted potential. And there's scenes that it sucks because there are scenes that are really good. And it's
Mm.
like it is surrounded by boring shit that is not Resident Evil at all. Resident Evil is never boring, and Resident Evil never. You're like, okay, so here's the story. It's like the story. Who cares?
Yeah.
There's zombies.
It's also the first time they call them zombies. I've never heard them called zombie. Like we call them that because that's what it like.
Right.
That's what
That's
they
what they
are
are.
basically.
Yeah.
But they've never called them zombies from what I can remember, except in Infinite Darkness.
Did they call them zombies in Resident, like in the games? I think in like RE, like I have this like memory of in like RE3, like the original, somebody saying like there are zombies outside or something like that. But I
Or
can't remember.
maybe the black cop in RE2, I think, calls them zombies.
Yeah.
The guy with the bite.
Oh, he does. He does. Yeah. Yeah, he
Yeah.
But in the
does.
movies, nobody ever calls them that until you are right about that. In the movies, nobody ever says that until Infinite Darkness, and it feels like kind of out of place. Feels I don't know. It's
It
too
was like noticeable, and it made me
yeah.
think, oh, y'all don't really know what you're doing. You're like, oh,
Oh,
what, a zombie story? Okay.
Death Island also has a great scene where a licker's tongue like almost touches Jill's tits. I thought that was great. I
I
really liked
watched that one in 0.5x speed.
that. They got like almost hentai in Death Island.
You know, if
She's
you,
like, she's got her face turned. She's like, oh, oh. Like Alien 3 hentai,
Yeah, the tongue,
it's getting real close, and you see those beautiful CGI boobs. I love
that
that
are
stuff.
already kind of like wet and glistening.
Yeah, you have great CGI boobs.
if we
So
if we can break
Dave,
stuff up like Kelby did, I would say actually for me, the airport sequence in Generation, then Infinite Darkness, and then the rest of Generation. Because I really dislike
okay,
the second half of Generation.
that's
The first
cool.
half is sick. I really like the airport stuff. I wish the whole movie had just been that.
Yeah.
My favorite sequence, yeah, from the whole series is the zombie hallway CQC, and then the Chris and Arius fight, then the final boss fight in Death Island. I just thought that was really cool. I like how they all use their little skills, and I love the putting the plasma cannon in its mouth and then firing it. I thought that was super cool. And then
Oh,
the
I
damn,
liked that Jill gets choked for a second. That was cool.
yeah, the choking part was cool. The damnation, blowing the tyrant apart with the tank.
Yeah.
That shit was hard. And then after that it's kind of a hodgepodge of scenes.
Chris and Leon double teaming the rocket launcher.
Yeah.
Yes, that was so hard, dude. That shit was tight.
My
The,
little
the
brother, when we watched that, he was like, did they just not know which direction was like where the rocket came out? And they were just guessing. Like, Chris is like, no, it's coming out this side. And Leon's like, oh, it's coming out the other side.
no, that shit was so tight. That was so tight. And then Infinite Darkness, I liked Leon's use of weapons against Jason, like Tyrant Jason
Mhm.
or whatever. I like that he got the 50 cal and he got a shot off.
Oh yeah, knocked his arm off. Yeah, that was kind of
Knocked his
surprising.
arm off.
Yeah.
And then he found another obscene weapon somewhere to fight him with, and then eventually like the Jason Tyrant is just like a torso on a it was very gothic the way that whole thing ended up, and I kind of did like the acid that was just rising,
Yeah,
and
that was
and
a
Claire
unique
had to escape it. The end sequence of like part 4 of ID was actually okay. That was pretty decent. It hit the tropes. I thought it was very satisfying, but all the meandering to get there,
Yeah.
it could have been so much better.
I didn't think about this before, but was the 50 cal blowing off the arm? There's no way that was a reference to Versus, was it? Like, do you guys think that that was a Versus
It
reference?
could be. At this point, it could be. I mean,
We
it's
have to
it's
ask the
it,
director.
it's in
That'd
it's
be
in
our
the
interview with him. Like, hey, was that scene a reference to Ria Kimura's Versus?
it could be because like Versus has to be in the head canon at
Yeah,
least. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, at this point,
I mean, we know Kojima
um,
really liked it because he got the guy who directed it to do the action scenes in Twin Snakes. So
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. This one actually, like Vendetta, had a real Twin Snakes feel to me, but like
yeah,
good,
yeah,
but good. When I was
yeah.
watching it, I was like, oh, this is like if Twin Snakes was good. Um, but yeah, I guess that'll do it. Thank you, Ren.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was fun. I'm glad that glad you guys enjoyed these. Not many people I feel like have watched these movies. You know,
The
But
like
they
wrong
should.
people have watched them because they have terrible to
Oh yeah,
middling.
bring up the ratings. Let's before we go, let's talk about the ratings on these movies.
They're about the same between like the IMD letterbox crowd where you're in the 6 out of 10 range on IMDb and in the like high 2, low 3 range on letterboxd. And let's just see, since unanimously Vendetta is way up there, we've got a 3.0 out of 5, which is not good because letterboxd is the place where people are like, Parasite has an average of 4.8 out of 5, and you know,
yeah,
everybody loves it. Uh yeah, so a 3.0, some of the top. That Breaking Bad joke took 10 years off my life is the number one
No, the Breaking Bad
review.
joke is
The
great.
Breaking Bad joke is gold. I'm
that
surprised
sequence.
That's
we didn't bring that up before actually.
Yeah, Vendetta takes time for the listening audience. Vendetta takes like almost like it's like 3 or 4 minutes long scene where Chris's like squad just talks about Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
yeah.
Out of nowhere, and it rocks. It's one of the funniest things in any of these movies.
Chris is like,
Mhm.
you know what? You know what I just realized? This is the longest y'all have ever gone without talking about Breaking Bad. And then they all start talking about Breaking Bad.
It's a masterpiece.
Just a master.
uh People appreciate the action, the positive reviews. This is Resident Evil, the real deal, but it is so Resident Evil that only fans will enjoy it. Okay, it's like
Yeah.
if you count the video games, it's like the 15th entry into the series. Like, what are you coming at it as a newbie? Like,
Mhm.
you're gonna
Yeah,
start with Resident Evil Vendetta.
I have to say that's I mean that's why I asked you guys afterwards because I didn't even think have these guys that even played the games because if you haven't played any of the games, like I do have to agree that these movies probably are not going to do much for you. Like you don't have to be like a super fan or played all of the games to enjoy them, but having at least like a baseline familiarity with the universe is probably a prerequisite going
If
into
you click on this movie to watch it and you've never played a game, you're retarded.
That's another thing. That's another thing that I enjoyed so much about Vendetta. I do say with 100% sincerity, you can go and search Vendetta hallway fight and you can enjoy it. But a lot of my enjoyment from it did come from like thinking, damn, this would be so badass as a video game.
Mhm.
Like the way that they're fighting CQC, I feel like you could fit if you structured an entire video game around the ability to fight like that, you
Yeah,
could make that happen in a video game.
yeah, some like Metal
Oh,
Gear Solid 5 type stuff.
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
All
Yeah, I
right.
mean, these
Oh,
movies.
good.
I mean, to be honest, like none of these movies are like masterpieces. All right, like Vendetta stands, I think, above all of them. Vendetta is one of my favorite movies now, but they're by no means like some of the best movies ever made or anything like that. And they're just movies that like I think are a lot of fun, and they are especially fun if you're a fan of the series and you kind of like know a little bit about the series and stuff because it's got stuff that you'll be like, hey, it's that guy. You'll do the Leonardo DiCaprio like pointing at the screen
Hmm.
kind and that stuff's fun, but like overall, like my recommendation still stands that like if you watch any of them, just watch Vendetta. Like that's the one that you'll get the most out of, I think, of all of them.
100% cosign. I have a question to ask when we stop recording.